Hello everyone, welcome back to Duel of the Takes. Today we are doing a follow-up to last week's episode, the Best Animated Feature nominations of the 2000s. We are now doing the 2010s. So these aren't necessarily the movies we grew up watching, the animated movies we grew up watching. These are kind of more the ones that were coming out during our formative years in middle school, high school, and beyond.
When pop music was good.
Pop music was pretty good still.
Yeah.
Up first, this one could be contentious for some. We've got Toy Story 3 up against How to Train Your Dragon, the first one.
I feel like when we did our DreamWorks ranking, I was kind of the boomer of that episode. I had all the old films on my list, and How to Train Your Dragon era of DreamWorks was around the time I kind of fell off, like, kind of animation as a whole. I don't know. I was just like into other stuff, and I wasn't going to the movies and seeing animated movies anymore. So I'm not super familiar with How to Train Your Dragon. I know it's got a huge following, but during this era, the one animated film I saw in theaters with my family was Toy Story 3. That movie was an event, and I think it's a very good movie. It's a little on the overrated side when you compare it to Pixar like we did when we ranked them, but I think overall it is still a solid Pixar movie. And did this win?
Yes. Toy Story 3 won Best Animated Picture this year. It was also up for Best Picture this year.
Toy Story 3 should have been the last Toy Story movie, and I liked it a lot. It had an impact on me because it came out in that time when it was like, we can relate to Andy as like moving on past this property, and so it had a really nice closing. I enjoy Toy Story 3. I cannot say the same for How to Train Your Dragon, or spoiler alert, any of the sequels. I fucking hate this franchise.
What?
Bruh.
This is a certified Duel of the Takes take.
I was just about to say that I think these are both the third best movies in their respective trilogies. I think that How to Train Your Dragon, the first one, starts off a little rough. It's just very cliche.
Yeah.
It's very much exactly what you think it's going to be and doesn't really take any risks. But I fucking love both the sequels for the risks that they take and the elevation and maturity that the stories are handled with, despite being sequels to this pretty middling kids movie. With Toy Story 3, I've said it before, I just think the best bits are kind of just rehashed bits from the second movie. I agree with you, Josh. Toy Story 3 was an event. I thought it was so cool that all like the Toy Story toys were like all over store shelves again. It was like this perfect nostalgic movie for me because I was, coming to age as like a preteen or whatever and didn't need to go see animated movies in theaters anymore. But because it was Toy Story 3, this was huge for me.
Yeah.
It's just a testament to the staying power in Disney and Pixar, and I don't think that Toy Story 4 had anywhere near that same pull. I could be wrong.
Toy Story 4 destroyed the franchise. It takes everything that we like learned as like a lesson and like a takeaway of like growing up and moving on and stuff, and just kind of like shits on it and then shoves that shit into a different ass and then shits it out in beautiful HD.
And then it's like, Woody's a simp.
Woody's a simp, and also Keanu Reeves is in it because he's contractually obligated to be in every movie now.
Alden, what's your take here? Do you agree Toy Story 3?
Yeah, I do. I like How to Train Your Dragon, but
all right.
It's not. I like the sequels more.
Nice.
Up next, we've got La Luminosi versus Une Vie de Cat, which is, I believe, The Cat in Paris and The Illusionist. We talked about the Triplets of Belleville last week, and I believe this was directed and produced by the same person, The Illusionist. I love the art style again, but I do think The Cat in Paris is the better movie.
I agree. I did a bunch of research on these, and I don't think The Illusionist looks nearly as good as the Triplets of Belleville. Like, it's crazy how they took a step down, and I'm not super crazy about A Cat in Paris. Like, the art style, I think the story's a little cliche, but it's cute, and I like it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like one of those foreign language animated movies that is like kind of preachy or has some like overarching message. It just feels like it's another animated kids movie that happens to be a foreign language film, like Cat in Paris. I personally like the 2D animation. I thought it was like really refreshing, and I like the way the environments look. I think it gives Ratatouille a run for its money for an animated portrayal of Paris. I think you get a lot more of the environment and the street life, which are my favorite elements of Ratatouille, instead of just interiors of kitchens. That doesn't scream Paris to me.
I I gotta pick cat. I mean, come on.
Alden, Josh, do you guys have a take here?
Yeah, you compared the cat one to Ratatouille, so...
I mean, I don't agree with Josh for the same reasons, but I agree.
Speaking of cats...
Yikes.
Chico and Rita up against a Puss in Boots 3D.
You have a Shrek spinoff on a character that is like a Jack Sparrow type that should stay a side character, and then you have an animated did this come out before or after La La Land? Because it's the same movie.
It's before, well before.
Okay, so La La Land ripped this movie off. The only thing that I don't like about Chico and Rita, because I like the story of La La Land, is that I do not like the animation at all. I think it is very ugly to look at.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely very cheap, and it's also definitely very like rudimentary. It's animated at it looks like it's animated at like 12 FPS, but it could be closer to 20. It just feels kind of choppy. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, the other one's a literal Shrek spinoff, and I don't know how it got a nomination. Puss in Boots is not a good movie.
I always forget Puss in Boots exists. Like, I feel like I just made that movie up.
When I think of it, I think there was a show, right? It might have been on Netflix. That was bad.
I think it's a little bit odd that these both represent Hispanic heritage in some capacity.
Chico and Rita looks like an elevated YouTube short.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is, and I think it's better than Puss in Boots. All right, Chico and Rita is moving on. Up next, we've got Kung Fu Panda 2 up against Rango.
Okay, so it's Rango.
Yeah, I love Rango. It's one of my favorite animated movies, honestly.
Rango is one of the best movies on this bracket, no cap.
I think Gore Verbinski's direction really elevates this movie from being a kid's movie to just straight up being a great movie. And I think Kung Fu Panda 2, like the How to Train Your Dragon movies, I think that like the story gets a lot deeper. There's a lot more going on in terms of like emotional depth with Kung Fu Panda 2 as opposed to the first one, but it's not as fun as the first one. I just feel like this movie's screaming, we want to be Pixar, which is weird to go with a sequel to a movie with Jack Black voicing a talking panda.
I watched Kung Fu Panda 2 recently because Aaron was like, remember how good that movie was? And I was like, yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, it was pretty. And then we watched it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting. I like the villain in it. It just doesn't hold up to Rango.
That's the problem I'm having here, because I really, really like Kung Fu Panda and Kung Fu Panda 2. Maybe not the third one, but Rango is just like, as a package, a lot stronger.
Probably one of the best westerns of the 2010.
Yeah.
Does Gore still direct movies? I feel like I'm his biggest fan.
I think he's stepped into more of a producing role, but yeah, no, he's still active in the industry, I believe.
He's got a project for 2023, and it's a sci-fi movie called Spaceless. A man wakes up inside a spacesuit, tumbling helplessly through space, with a computer designed to keep him company until his air runs out, trying to solve the mystery of his death. This sounds like Better Gravity.
This sounds like Gravity meets Memento, and I'm here for it.
Anywho, Rango takes it. Like, come on.
The round that no one gives a shit about. We've got Brave up against the Pirates. Hang on, let me look up the full title here, because it's longer than I think. The Pirates, Band of Misfits, is the United States title, but in Britland, they kept it as The Pirates in an Adventure with Scientists.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't know. This movie just screams like budget Aardman animation.
That's what it is, though.
But it has a really good meme template.
It has two good meme templates. It has the GIF with the fucking monkey playing the cymbals, and then it has the one with the, well, no, actually, but yes. Which is weird that this movie has staying power, but this is definitely my least favorite Aardman animated movie.
That's fair. I just don't like Brave at all, so I
was about to say, Brave might be my least favorite Pixar movie.
Brave is fucking terrible. I will say that.
This base takes here. Brave is not, it's not just the worst Pixar movie, it's terrible.
Dude, it would be bad if it was a Disney animated movie.
I like it.
For why?
It's a fun time. I literally get to hear people struggle with Scottish accents the entire time.
It has the same problem that a lot of newer Pixar movies kind of have, where it's like, we have a good premise here, we've got a great main character, like, I genuinely like the main character of this movie for the first 15-20 minutes or so, but then they just, like, shift the plot into, like, the most generic animated kids movie shit ever, where they're like, yeah, no, her mom and brothers are just gonna turn into a bear.
Me mom's a bear.
And, like, Disney has done this twice within a decade. And it's like, why is everyone turning into a bear? What is this, fucking Midsummer?
Because bears are like giant dogs, and people love dogs, but dogs are overused, so they used bears.
Yeah, I have to go with the Pirates band of misfits here.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
If only because Brave sucks.
Yeah, I'm definitely outvoted, but I like Brave.
I'm glad you do, Alden.
Let it be known Alden likes Brave.
Yeah.
All right, up next, we've got Frankenweenie up against Paranorman. Kind of weird these movies were released the same year. They're both kind of spookier, kid-friendly movies.
I thought these were the same movie.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from a lot of people.
I think part of the reason Frankenweenie underperformed, I mean, that one looks like the one that would do better. It's a Disney-produced movie directed by Tim Burton based off of an animated, or not a live-action short he made like 25 years before. Frankenweenie had a lot going for it, and then Paranorman came out first. I think it came out in like August or September, and I just don't think the market really needed two spooky animated kids movies that year.
People saw Paranorman after Frankenweenie came out, and they were like, I already saw that movie.
I mean, I don't think Josh is alone in thinking that this is the same movie.
Yeah.
I think that Paranorman is funnier than Frankenweenie. There's a lot of like clever jokes that I really enjoy in Paranorman. I don't get any of that enjoyment out of Frankenweenie whatsoever.
I think I agree.
I agree with the jokes element of it. This is a hot take going back to last week's episode. If Monster House had the art style of Paranorman, I think it would be a great movie.
That's a good take.
Because I like this kind of like, it feels like one part comic booky, like every character looks like a caricature, and it also has like those same kind of creepy visuals at times, like Monster House aspired to do. I think in terms of a movie, I think I like Frankenweenie more. I think it's got a better heart to it. It's got like more of a story to it, and I think it fits better within like the greater mythos of Tim Burton's animated movies than whatever Paranorman was like going for. The cultural like impact of both of these movies is literally nothing. Like, I forgot both of these existed until I made this bracket.
I think just Frankenweenie's cooler for me. That just might be a Tim Burton bias.
Do we have a 50-50 here?
Yes, we do. But I'd be willing to change my vote over to Paranorman. I don't think Frankenweenie is a good kids movie. I will say that. Like, no kid wants to watch a black and white animated movie about a boy who's sad that his dog dies, so he brings it back to life with science.
I'm not going to lose sleep over any choice that gets made here. I remember parts of Paranorman that I'm like, that was funny as fuck. Like, all the parts with, like, the big jock guy and his girlfriend are hilarious, but there's none of that in Frankenweenie.
Yeah, no, there's good bits.
Yeah. I don't think they were dating.
I guess my question is, which one of these do you think had a better shot of winning the best animated feature? Because I definitely don't think it was Paranorman.
It was definitely Frankenweenie had a better shot because
Yeah.
that they would rather have Tim Burton accept the award, I'm sure.
I mean, that's the only reason I think I wanted to move on, is just because, like, I feel like this makes sense for being here, whereas, like, Paranorman would be like if, like, the Addams Family 2 movie produced by Amazon or distributed by Amazon got a Best Animated Feature nomination this year, which might happen.
You've swung me. Frankenweenie is pretty unique. It's pretty unique for what it is, and it does deserve to be here more than Paranorman. Paranorman does feel like a DreamWorks movie.
What studio was Paranorman?
I think it's the same one that did, like, Kubo and the Two Strings, right? Isn't it that, like...
Laika? Paranorman's a Laika movie?
But it's not Disney, right?
No, it's definitely not Disney.
So it had a lesser chance by default of winning.
That's fair.
Yeah, it is a Laika movie.
Wow. That is it must be the least good Laika movie I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree.
I for the fact that it's Laika and it like dumps itself in a bowl for being what it is. Like a Laika movies are good. Even the bad ones are good. I'm changing my vote to Frankenweenie because Paranorman should have been better than that if it's a fucking Laika movie.
All right, Disney versus Disney here. We've got Wreck-It Ralph versus Frozen. I think that there's people that feel passionate about both these movies.
I hate both of them.
Whatever side is going to be pissed at us.
I don't think any of the four of us care about Frozen.
No.
I kind of care about Frozen. I mean, a little bit.
I spent 2 years of my life with like the Frozen soundtrack being the default thing in both of our cars.
Yeah, I think like its impact like on pop culture is very impressive, but I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, I feel like...
Wreck-It Ralph is really good. It's surprisingly good.
Well, it's also targeted to your demographic more. You are a gamer.
I guess. Definitely targets my demographic better than Free Guy.
I stand by that. I think Frozen was purely created to hide the search results of Walt Disney's Frozen head.
I don't disagree, but I do think Frozen has an interesting presentation to itself. I think in a lot of ways it's kind of Disney's biggest animated movie since Lion King, even though it's a more rudimentary take on their like Disney princesses and trying to revive that, even though Tangled did it better. It has this interesting premise and this interesting setup and was such a big success. It makes sense why this specific Disney film was recognized by the Academy in some capacity or another. I also think, as annoying as Let It Go is, the other songs on the soundtrack are all pretty good. Like, there's a lot of great, like, future musical theater standards. I dig the Frozen setup and payoff. I think it's a fine movie, and I think it's honestly like a good movie for kids to watch too. I think that like the theming of who these princesses like let into their life and like the contrast between them is really cool. I think it does a third act revealed villain in like a pretty decent way for a dumb kids movie. Wreck-It Ralph I think has more interesting visuals, has a way stronger sense of tone consistency throughout. Like it's very much a lot more fun. I also think it was a little bit ahead of its time in a way. I think Wreck-It Ralph is like the best version of these Ready Player One movies that we've seen, where it's like, how many possible fucking intellectual properties can we throw into one movie and have people still care about our main character? I genuinely like Wreck-It Ralph and Fix-It Felix. By the end of this movie, I think that both those characters and the dynamics of who they are predetermined to be versus who they actually are arguably better and maybe even deeper than anything within Frozen. I could go either way here. My gut feeling is telling me Frozen.
Yeah, I feel like Wreck-It Ralph took some plot points from like the Toy Story sequels too. It feels like a lot of times it's video games, or it's the video game version of like toys, especially with the Wreck-It Ralph game itself being an old video game and potentially shutting down.
If I had to sit through one of these movies again, which both of them I do not like, I don't think that they're bad. I can look at them objectively and see. I hear what you're saying, Nate. That Frozen has a lot of merit to it, and it came out at just the right time. And Wreck-It Ralph, I think, has a great emotional heart too, and there's a lot of stuff in it that I like. Sarah Silverman is fantastic in it. I love what's his face, the guy from 30 Rock who plays Fix-It Felix. He's amazing in it. Everything he says is hilarious to me. I don't want to sit through either of these movies again, but if I had to pick one, it would be Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, same.
Sweet. We're gonna wreck it. I have to say, I can't have Wreck-It Ralph move on without mentioning Kanye West comparing himself to The Glitch. I think that's funny every time I see that clip. All right, up next, we've got The Croods, a DreamWorks movie, up against Despicable Me 2. Illumination's step into the Minion pop culture phenomenon that it was. I think without the sequel, Minions would have had a very short lifespan, but Minions are in more movies than like Woody and Buzz at this point.
That's disgusting, first of all.
It's despicable.
The Despicable Me 2 poster looks like Hux in Force Awakens when he's given that speech to the stormtroopers.
I do not like the Croods.
Thank you.
Never ask a man how much money he makes, never ask a woman her age, and never ask the Minions who they served in Nazi Germany.
Should we stick with the Croods because the Minions were just probably Nazis, and if we don't, then we'll be like, all of us will be labeled white supremacists?
I think the Croods are white supremacists.
I know Nicolas Cage voices Dad Crude. I'm actually leaning toward Despicable Me 2 here. I just think for the cultural staying power alone, it makes sense why Illumination is maybe the second best animated studio right now in terms of financial gross.
Nate is a white supremacist confirmed.
Standing by it, Despicable Me 2 moves on.
Yeah. I hate the Croods.
I forget what it's called. I have not watched the one on the right, but I did look at it. It looks very cute.
Yes. Up next, we've got The Wind Rises up against Ernest and Celestine, I believe. Ernest and Celestine versus The Wind Rises. I think The Wind Rises is an underrated Studio Ghibli movie. I don't think it's a great one. I'm leaning toward that one. I don't think I've seen Ernest and Celestine, and I'm sorry. I know Nate hasn't seen a movie on a bracket. Yeah, I'm sorry. This one flew completely under my radar.
This is a duel that takes first.
Ernest and Celestine is cute, but extremely predictable and extremely basic. Whereas The Wind Rises is a very deep and thoughtful story about a couple growing up in Japan in World War I. Mm-hmm. Absolutely breathtaking to look at, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching by the end. I really don't think there's a competition here. I think Ernest and Celestine deserves recognition. I just can't be the person that gives it to it.
Yes, I cried watching The Wind Rises in theaters because I was under the impression that this was supposed to be the last directed movie by Miyazaki, and so I was like, I gotta make an effort to go see this, and he's made like 3 cents, so I feel completely ripped off. But in the same regard, I do think the story, yeah, it gets me there. It's very deep, and it's a beautiful like romance portrayed through animation in a way that doesn't feel like artificial. It doesn't feel like there's this fantasy or whimsical element. It's a very grounded anime movie, and I respect that for it. It also tackled World War I before a lot of other like major Hollywood movies did that later in the decade, which I thought was weird that it took us a while to get there.
You mean 1917, the greatest film of the decade?
And Wonder Woman. All right, here it is. Big Hero 6 versus How to Train Your Dragon 2.
I said what I said.
This one's really difficult for me.
All right, Sakula, this could be our first big alliance here.
I said it before, I'll say it again. I have a complete and utter disdain for the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. I have seen all of the movies. I do not like a single one of them. I will agree with what a lot of people will say, that the second one has some really beautiful animation, but it doesn't touch Big Hero 6, so... And also look at Baymax.
Both of these movies may or may not have made me cry. Maybe I'm an oversensitive fella, but I like elements of Big Hero 6, but the longer that movie goes on, the less I give a shit. I feel like all of the interesting stuff happens in the first act, and then the movie just plays out, whereas How to Train Your Dragon 2 has a narrative and a journey within it for our main character who's named something stupid like Hiccup.
You put some respect on Hiccup.
He finds out a lot about his heritage, about his family's past. He has to deal with the death of his father and also leading an army in battle. I think that this is the closest an American animated movie has matched or an anime film like Princess Mononoke since its respective release. There's a lot to do with coming of age. There's a lot to do with a giant world conflict. And sure, it's a lot lighter. It's got a bunch of fucking funny ass dragons, but it's better than some really weird superhero shit that, I mean, sure, does the villain have a good motivation behind what he's doing? I personally think so. I think Big Hero 6 has a good villain, but I think How to Train Your Dragon 2 has a great hero, and I don't think that Big Hero 6 has that. It has a cute mascot.
Okay, Alden, give it to us.
Yeah, no, Nate already sold me on the first bit of Big Hero 6, like everything happens in the first act. I've seen this movie, I think, seven times since it came out, and I've only seen How to Train Your Dragon 2 once. And I still think I'm leaning towards How to Train Your Dragon, because it's just the more I watch Big Hero 6, the less I like it. And I hate that fact about it because it was one of my favorite Disney movies a while ago.
I have the exact opposite feeling about Big Hero 6. The more I watch it, the more I like it. And I know it's simplistic, and you're right. I never thought about that. A lot of it happens in the first act.
Yeah, I think I just get bored with it.
What it does is it sets up all the heroes in the first act, and then you just get like this Pixar animated superhero movie with these heroes that you kind of like have never really seen before. Like Incredibles, I love Incredibles. I don't think it's worse than Big Hero 6. It's Fantastic Four. Let's be honest. It's Fantastic Four, and that's great. I love the Fantastic Four. Big Hero 6 is like it's got all these unique characters that you haven't seen before.
I think it's really impressive that in a decade filled of the oversaturation of superhero films, an animated film like Big Hero 6 could still stand out, still be talked about today as one of Disney's best animated films of the past decade. Like I said before, I know the How to Train Your Dragon franchise has its fan base. I'm not denying that the animation's really good in that, but I don't know. The whole world and lore I never found like all that interesting. And I don't know, Big Hero 6 is a little more inviting to me as a casual viewer of animated films, I guess.
Yeah, I can definitely get that. I actually watched How to Train Your Dragon 2 before I had seen the first one. I think I was just watching. I was like babysitting some kids, and they wanted to watch How to Train Your Dragon 2. So I was like, yeah, whatever, throw it on. And I was not even paying attention. I was playing games on my phone like a good babysitter. And then like as the story went on, I was like getting emotionally connected to these dumbass characters with stupid names, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? And then the third act of this movie brought me to fucking tears. I mean, it's really well affected. It's got beautiful music, fantastic animation to bout. And then I went back and watched the first How to Train Your Dragon, and I was like, this movie like sucks. Like honestly, it's the sequel is leaps and bounds ahead of the first one in every capacity. And I think that that's something that kind of needs to be like rewarded and acknowledged in some capacity, because as much as I like Big Hero 6, I don't think that anything about that movie is wholly or original or organic. It feels very much like a movie that was created to market Baymax as like a mascot, as like maybe the next Stitch of sorts. And I really think the plot just underdelivers. Very heavy exposition dump. We already know our main character is like orphaned, and you know he's living with his really hot aunt, and that's just part of the plot. And then his like older brother dies, and you're like, shit, damn, this guy's life couldn't get any worse. And it's like it hits you with all this stuff over the head at the very beginning, like some of the later Pixar movies, or I guess now the middle Pixar movies. It's got the same kind of setup as like a WALL-E or an Up, in terms of here's everything that this movie has to offer in the first 15 minutes. And if you give a shit after that, good on you. If you don't, well, at least you had a good 15-minute short film. And I liked the first 15 minutes of Big Hero 6 a lot, but the longer that movie went on, the less I gave a shit. And I feel the complete opposite about the other movie here. The more you watch the movie, as the story and as the plot continues, you get so much more invested into the character and the world. It's dumb. It's not a movie that I would ever watch on my own accord, but when I did watch it, I was taken aback. I thought that How to Train Your Dragon 2 was an amazing movie, and acceptable for kids too, even though it has darker themes. Big Hero 6 is also totally suitable for children of all ages, and it has some darker stuff at the beginning, but then it gets really fucking light and turns into just about every other animated movie made in the past decade.
Here's a broad strokes take that I'm gonna basically just be like, okay, fine, because I don't think either of these movies are going to make it very far overall. I don't think either of these movies make it to even the chub. I don't think that either of these have the staying power to do that. I'm okay with folding on this one, but I'm not conceding that How to Train Your Dragon 2 is better than Big Hero 6, because it's not. I don't like those movies, are not good to me, and I the character design makes me like viscerally upset.
All right, it sounds like the popular opinion here. It sounds like 3 people are okay with Big Hero 6 moving on, and I'm just a shill for How to Train Your Dragon 2.
I'm with you on How to Train Your Dragon.
That's what I'm saying. I'm folding here.
Yeah, but you've also watched Big Hero 6 like 6 or 7 times. I would.
Yes, but I'm saying every time I watch it, I like it less. I get bored after the first half.
Sakula does make a point about the characters, and I feel like that's DreamWorks in general. I'm like, why does The Incredibles, a film that came out in like 2004, look better than still some of like the early 2010s DreamWorks characters?
It's a good point.
They're just not appealing to look at. None of them are. Like, you've got your main lead who you're supposed to identify with, and he looks so stupid. And then you've got the love interest who looks like she got hit by a bus.
If I cared as much about the other 2 movies in its trilogy, I think I would have to like die on this hill. But I really think that How to Train Your Dragon 2 is like a great movie with 2 pretty good movies like surrounding it. I mean, if there's a lot of love for Big Hero 6, it really doesn't matter to me. I think that Big Hero 6 is fine. I just doesn't.
Neither of them are making it very far in this bracket.
You're totally right. Hey Siri, flip a coin.
Big Hero 6 is heads.
It's heads. Big Hero 6 moves on.
Big Hero 6.
All right, The Box Trolls by Laika versus Song of the Sea. We talked about what was the one the Secret of Kells last week on the show. Yeah, I think Song of the Sea is the better movie here. I straight up do. Box Trolls is really bland and super forgettable, and I remember when it got nominated, like a lot of people were like, "Really? What the fuck?" And the animation's good. It has that kind of stop motion feel to it. It's really really cool, but the story is stupid. The Box Trolls are lame characters. It really just feels like a prototype for like the DreamWorks fucking Trolls movies, like wholeheartedly.
I have the same feelings for Box Trolls that I do for the How to Train Your Dragon movies, where I just think it's viscerally ugly to look at.
Song of the Sea, though, I think is a beautifully animated movie.
Oh my god, no. We're gonna have to fight for Song of the Sea later, because I have a deep love for that movie.
All right, cool. We'll save it for later then. Up next, we've got The Tale of Princess Kaguya versus When Marnie Was There.
Okay.
I don't know if I've seen both of these movies. I know that they are both Ghibli movies, I believe.
I've seen When Marnie Was There. I haven't seen the other one. I looked at some of the trailers for it, and it looks pretty. But I'm going to be super biased here, because When Marnie Was There is now one of my favorite Ghibli movies of all time. Definitely one of the most heart-wrenching and incredible animated stories I think ever told. I cannot sing enough praises about that movie. But I can't say anything about the other one because I really haven't seen it at all. But I will say I feel like the animation, while simplistic, and that's kind of the point, feels lacking to me. And maybe that's like the point, that it's like, very, very, very simplistic. You've got like, 4 or 5 colors going on at once.
Yeah, one of them feels like a fairy tale. Like it feels like a story of a princess coming into her own. And then the other one just feels like a gut-wrenching coming-of-age drama. And me and my preferences are going to lean with the gut-wrenching coming-of-age drama, especially in the way that it's presented in When Marnie Was There. I think that's the better movie, and I don't really think that that's a hot take.
No, not at all. Alden, Josh, you got anything on this?
Josh has not seen either of these, and I don't think he ever will, and that's fine.
Alden sent the political compass with the watches anime, does not watch anime. I don't like that I'm on like the line of very close to watching anime.
I mean, I would say that Ghibli is technically outside the realm.
Whatever makes you feel better.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make me feel better. I've watched actual anime, so I can't say much. To make you feel better, they're a bit not as gross.
I do think, Josh, that I justified that with you watch pro wrestling, which is just live action anime, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. Redneck anime.
All right, When Marnie Was There moves on. Let's fucking speed round this shit.
Let's go.
All right. Sorry, Kat in Paris. You just don't have the emotional depth.
It's Toy Story 3.
Chico and Rita versus Rango.
It's Rango.
It's Rango.
Rango's a competently animated movie. Frankenweenie versus the Pirates band of misfits.
Frankenweenie.
I would have felt better saying Paranorman here, but Frankenweenie is still fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Wreck-It Ralph versus Despicable Me 2.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
The Wind Rises versus Big Hero 6.
Wind Rises.
Yeah, it's The Wind Rises.
Wind Rises.
Big Hero 6.
Josh, one of these movies is actually made by Japanese people, and the other one heavily appropriates Japanese culture.
San Fran, Tokyo.
I do love the idea of San Fran, Tokyo, though. It's a cool looking city.
I mean, it's a cool looking city. I still hate it.
Song of the Sea versus When Marnie Was There.
When Marnie Was There.
When Marnie Was There.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, we are now fighting for the final 3, I guess. And one of them is gonna have to fucking... this bracket's set up weird. weird because there's more than 32. So are we all leaning toward Rango here?
I am.
I think I am.
Yeah, I mean, Toy Story 3, like,
It's no Toy Story 2.
it has that emotional depth. It pretty much was our first, like, Force Awakens, because, like, we had all these characters we knew come back after, I think it was, like, 10 years, whatever. And, pretty big deal. Pretty big, fun event. Where Toy Story lacks... Toy Story 3 lacks, excuse me, is doing the whole third act villain thing again, especially this one you just saw from a full mile away if you've seen any Pixar movie. And, but it gives you a very great ending. But Rango, it does so many things in animation that, like, I think are so underrated, where they actually had, like, Johnny Depp and the other actors, like, actually, like, do the scenes, walk around, they're motion capped.
Well, they're not even motion capture though. It's like they literally just did it for reference to see how the actors would do it, and then they animated the characters while looking at the footage. Like, that's the crazy part, is it's not even mocap.
And I feel like there was a lot of unnecessary hate towards Johnny Depp in the 2010s when it came to his career, because I think he never really had such a bad, like, downward spiral as people think, because I think this is a great example of this is a great Johnny Depp performance in Rango. It really reminded me of some of his 90s performances, like Ed Wood. He's just so funny in it.
Yeah, and in a way, he's kind of reprising his character again from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and from the Rum Diaries. This is very, very loosely based off of gonzo journalism and that kind of aesthetic with a Western, and I think it does it in a really fun way. I think a lot of movies on this list have this reluctant hero kind of narrative, and I think Rango does that a lot better than most movies that try.
Just to dunk on Toy Story 3 even more before we pick Rango, Toy Story 3 is... I love the movie. If you take these as individual movies and you dispel everything else about everything that we know, Toy Story 3 doesn't hold up without having the emotional backstory of the first ones. Like you were saying, it was like I think you said Avengers.
That's true.
It doesn't... You can't... If Toy Story 3 is the first movie that you've seen, you cannot appreciate it as much as you can as if you've seen the other ones, whereas Rango stands on its own.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, like, without Toy Story 1 and 2, you really don't get much of a movie here. You get like a reunion movie for, like, characters that you don't know. And I feel bad for all, like, the kids that are younger than us that this was probably their first Toy Story movie. Frankenweenie, Wreck-It Ralph.
It's not even a competition. It's Wreck-It Ralph.
I'm gonna wreck it.
I'm gonna wreck it.
All right, Wind Rises versus When Marnie Was There.
I'm picking When Marnie Was There, as much as I love the Wind Rises.
I think I'm leaning towards the Wind Rises personally. I love both of these movies, and I think they're both underrated Ghibli movies. But I like the environment and the, like, kinetic nature to passage of time in The Wind Rises a lot more. You kind of see this, like, romance play out over the course of, like, I think it's like 5 or 6 years, which is a long time for people in their, like, early 20s and progressing into adult, like, whereas I think, like, When Marnie Was There is very much a deep story, but very specifically about, like, the summer after, and it hurts, and it's a good watch, but I don't think it has that kind of grand epic scale that The Wind Rises has for me personally. I think it's just a preference thing.
That's what I like about When Marnie Was There, is that it doesn't have that grand scale. It very much, if for the main character, you focus on her, like you see very visceral examples of, like, real reaction to depression. The way she treats that one girl before she gets sent off to, like, to the farm area with the castle and all that shit. Like, the way she treats that one girl is purely out of her own self-hatred. It has nothing to do with the other chick. She's being so nice. And then the way they portray the way that girl like not forgives her, but, like, offers her redemption. I don't know. And there's also lots of, like, heavy LGBT themes in When Marnie Was There. Then it turns... I don't want to spoil... Are we spoiling movies?
It doesn't matter. If it helps your defense, then do it.
And then they turn around and they're like, no, it's not that. The blonde girl, spoiler alert, skip ahead like 30 seconds, turns out to be her grandmother. The main character very clearly is gay and did not know that. And there's other themes at play there that that go into like the very weird like spiritual Miyazaki-ness of it, but it's I love all of the themes in When Marnie Was There. It really, like, I think it's very, very strong, and I think that When Marnie Was There is stronger than is it Wind Rises or When the Wind Rises?
I think it's The Wind Rises.
The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad.
Josh, Alden, I think we need a tiebreaker here if any one of you has seen these movies. I know Josh hasn't, nor will he ever, and that's okay.
I will probably side with Wind Rises.
Okay, I'm sorry, John.
That's okay. It's a good movie. It's a really, really strong pick.
Super underrated. All right. Up next, Rango versus Wreck-It Ralph. I did not really see it coming down to these two for the left side of the bracket.
This is not at all how my bracket went.
All right, I'm making a tough choice here.
Is that a tough choice?
Yeah, for me it is, because I really appreciate Wreck-It Ralph a whole lot more after seeing the second one. They somehow managed to build onto it extremely well.
How do you... I should have expected this. I should have expected this take from Alden that he would start defending Wreck-It Ralph 2.
This is very gamer moment.
Johnny Depp is definitely a gamer moment.
I think I like the animation style of Rango more. I kind of like how oddly realistic all of the animal, like, human hybrid characters look in this. Like, the rattlesnake villain.
I like how it makes me thirsty.
Yes, this movie does make me really thirsty. I like that it mixes like the themes and like the underlying current of a movie like Chinatown, where it's all about control of power and control of water. It's not something you'd really think of in a typical Western, but it makes a lot of sense. And then you've got all these like little desert critters, and I really like the rattlesnake villain and the fucking evil ass old man turtle. He feels like what's his name's character from The Quick and the Dead, but he's a turtle.
When Rango was in theaters, there must have been people just like sprinting to the concession stands in the middle of that movie.
Oh yeah, it's like, I need a Coke stat.
Give me your finest icy.
It's now Pepsi.
I like Wreck-It Ralph, but it to me is the Disney like animated movie that is striving the hardest to be a Pixar movie and just falls a little bit short. I do think, like I said though, I do think the elements of it blending all these other intellectual properties and video game characters and stuff is way better than things that came out after it. I think it does that element very well. I like the scene that they played a lot in the trailers with all the villains at like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Yeah.
All these different video game characters, and I like that like Wreck-It Ralph is essentially like a Donkey Kong ripoff, and this is the best Donkey Kong movie we'll ever get.
That's facts.
Never thought I'd see Sonic on a cover of a Disney poster too.
I forgot Sonic was in that movie.
Rango Unchained versus The Wind Rises.
Two completely different themings.
Very.
I'm gonna look like such a weeaboo.
No.
I feel like it's a stronger, like I love Rango, and
No. You had the Wii movie, go over Ratatouille last week. We're not doing this again.
Hey Josh, I was on your side last week.
That's what I'm afraid of right now.
I'll say that I don't think that Wind Rises is the strongest Ghibli movie. I don't think that pitting two Ghibli movies against it, if the other one makes it, is worth it. I'm willing to go with Rango on this one because I do love both of these, and we've talked about it a lot, but I love the animation in Rango. It really, like, I've watched it multiple times just on my phone, just because it's like, just watching it is so satisfying.
When we ranked the Nickelodeon original movies, if it wasn't in the context of it being under the Nickelodeon umbrella, I think Rango could have won that list.
Oh, it's the best movie on that list.
I'm surprised it didn't. What did it lose to?
Like SpongeBob SquarePants the movie and Good Burger. And maybe Nacho Libre, I don't remember.
Nacho Libre was in the top 4 with the rest of them. I remember that.
Okay, then Rango was 5.
That's insanity. Hey,
Good Burger is pretty great.
Okay, then Rango deserves its retribution right now.
All right, Rango it is.
Glad I brought that up.
the right side of the bracket. We've got Boy in the World up against Shaun the Sheep, the movie.
Shaun the Sheep.
Yeah, I don't even care for Shaun the Sheep. I'm surprised that Nate is like about to like bleed for this movie in this bracket, but I watched the trailer for Boy in the World and I watched a bunch of clips from it. I watched some people talk about it and nobody sold me. It looks okay.
It is very okay.
Like I like the kid style of it, like the childish like drawing style that they animate. It's cute.
Why'd they make Boy Meets World an animated movie?
And that's cool, but I don't think that it holds up to Shaun the Sheep the movie, even though I don't think Shaun the Sheep the movie needs to go as far as that we're going to try and make it go here.
Yeah, I think it does.
All right, up next, we've got Anomalisa versus Inside Out.
For me, this one's not a competition because I don't like Inside Out.
I remember watching Inside Out in theaters and thinking, like, wow, this is like one of the best Pixar movies in years. And I think it has some really great elements. I don't think it's aged particularly well. I think it's fine. I think it's a good movie. But Anomalisa is one of the most unique movies on this entire list. And I think it's probably the best written movie on this entire list. Charlie Kaufman is a fucking madman, and the fact that he was like, yeah, I want to make a movie about like really like human, very like grounded, realistic characters, but yeah, no, they're all just puppets. They're all like marionette dolls.
I think we're gonna have to come back to Anomalisa because like there's a lot of elements that I really want to talk about with it, but it's not even worth disclosing them in relation to Inside Out.
Yeah, the fact that Inside Out beat this at the Academy is straight up insulting.
It's most certainly because it's Disney and because Anomalisa is very short and because Inside Out is way more marketable than Anomalisa is. Anomalisa is an extremely dark, extremely personal story, is very, very R-rated.
Here it is, the Disney battle. We've got Moana up against Zootopia.
Here's a hot take. Oh, Alden, you go.
Zootopia represents good things, but also very, very not good things.
What are the very not good things?
Well, we'll talk about it later when you're older.
Look, I think that Zootopia, and this is a hot take, is a better film. I think it has more interesting characters.
But does it have The Rock?
I agree, but I don't want to.
No, but here's the thing, right? A, it doesn't have The Rock, but B, it also has furries and has done a lot for that community that I cannot support. I'm not stupid on furries. I know it's not all sexual. I don't care. I really hate all of them and I don't like them. I really think that it's a bad space.
I've had multiple people who worked at theaters during the release of Zootopia. Every single person I have talked to about it has had a very similar experience, and that's a huge like slash against the movie. I can't even watch it again, and it's a good movie. That's the problem.
During Zootopia, and there were definitely some kids with tails like yiffing in the back seat, and it was kind of very uncomfortable because this is a Disney movie. I am gonna align with the furry tendencies here, though. I think Zootopia is the better movie. I will say Moana, the fucking music in Moana is fantastic. I think without that soundtrack, Moana's nothing. I don't care for the story. I think that the environment is interesting and unique. I like Moana as a character. I sort of like what they do with Maui, sort of. It feels a little too cliche where he's like, oh, he comes back like just in the nick of time. Like, it's like, of course he does. Like, no one ever thought he was going to do anything. I just don't like that sometimes they treat kids like they're idiots. And like, even as a kid, if I was watching Moana, I'd be like, yeah, Maui's gonna come back and like help save the day. But like, Zootopia is a plot that kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. And I think that like the reveal villain is actually pretty smart. And I think it says a lot more about our society than whatever like Moana's like deeper themes are, which is a pretty much like believe in yourself and have faith in tradition and family, which is cool. But Zootopia said ACAB before it was cool. And it also used furries to do that, and it's probably the most 2010s movie I can think of.
Moana gave some mainstream attention to Samoans outside of professional wrestling, so I do give that a positive. I will say about Zootopia though, I remember the trailer for that with the sloth. I think it was when I saw like Force Awakens or something. It was the only trailer. Genuinely, the whole theater was like laughing out loud, which is an interesting point I could give, because I haven't seen Zootopia.
And Jason Bateman's so good in it.
I will say the actual like mystery within the movie is good enough. Like it feels like a G-rated 7.
Kinda, yeah. I think I agree with you, Nate. Zootopia is a better movie. However, I'm putting my foot firmly in Moana camp. I cannot align with the furry agenda. If it were up to me, they would all be behind bars. They go a little bit into the idea of what if it was an animal society? Well, we'd have different sized things. The hamsters would have their little suction tubes. They don't go beyond that, though. They're still all regular human-sized chairs. All the cars are still regular cars, basically. The buildings are buildings. They have, like...
Well, sort of. But the Italian little mouse community with Marlon Brando mouse is...
They do some cute stuff with it, but everything has to be very human-themed. I've seen...
Sakula, if somebody told you it was in the same universe as, like, Chicken Little, would you believe it?
I would believe it.
I wouldn't.
It's the same idea. Like, they have little differences, but it's mostly the same. And I think that I've seen a lot more animated movies with animal characters in it where they go a lot harder into the idea of, like, what if the society was built around animals? In this one, they're kind of like, well, what if human society was left over and then animals took over? Well, a couple things would change, but not everything. That bothers me a lot. And also the furry aspect. So I'm in Moana camp. You guys can fight this out.
If there are any of the good ones in reference to furries listening to us right now, wave. We're not going to see it, but go ahead and wave.
I mean, I think so much of this really comes down to soundtrack. Zootopia has one Shakira song, and Moana has arguably the best Disney princess movie soundtrack since, like...
Aladdin?
I'd make a case for maybe Mulan.
Oh, yeah, that was after Aladdin.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, Moana can move on here. I think I gave Zootopia a fair fight. Up next, we've got The Red Turtle versus My Life as a Zucchini.
I watched The Red Turtle. I did not watch My Life as a Zucchini. I did watch some people talk about it. I really appreciate My Life as a Zucchini. It actually talks about a story I've never really seen portrayed in this way. It's extremely dark for a kid's movie. It feels like something Tim Burton would make, but it's way too colorful to be that. That being said, the visual storytelling in The Red Turtle is unparalleled by anything that I've seen that I can think of. It's actually totally dialogueless. There's a couple words where people are like shouting, completely dialogueless, and you are never confused about what anybody's feeling. And there's all these beautiful wide shots. I saw one reviewer calling it like the bastard of Studio Ghibli, which like I can get because I think it's the first one that came after Miyazaki died. It looks nothing like a Ghibli movie. I would be hard pressed to even call it one, but it is extremely beautiful, extremely heartfelt, and there's no dialogue. So it's like it manages to tell a deep and fulfilling story while having no dialogue whatsoever. I think My Life as a Zucchini can be argued for, and I won't be upset about it, but I think Red Turtle is a feat in filmmaking and storytelling.
Yeah, I like the premise of the Red Turtle, and I do agree the visuals really help guide the story in a way that is extremely unique, especially for what Studio Ghibli was doing at the time before and after, where especially in the localization of the films for an American audience, they'd partner with Disney and get like an A-list voice cast, and the fact that they made this kind of off-kilter, pretty much no dialogue, feature-length animated film is very impressive. I'm gonna lean with My Life as a Zucchini here because Jesus Christ, this story is deep as shit. The main character's mom is an alcoholic whose father abandoned him, and he essentially gets killed in a drunken rage by his mom by falling down a flight of stairs, and associates with being a vegetable for the rest of his life, which is fucking depressing. But also, this movie's like really warm and like colorful and vibrant, and I guess like that tonal yo-yoing of like this isn't for kids, but at the same time it's like it has that same kind of like youthful presentation to it, where I think it's in a way supposed to bring the child out of an adult audience member watching this and feeling an emotional connection, even if they don't have that past and like, trauma as a child and like living through the characters for a little bit. And I agree, this feels like a Tim Burton movie if a Tim Burton movie committed to actually having like grounded characters and like real world consequences.
And more than one color.
Yes, and more than one color. Yeah, I don't know. I could go either way here. Based off of the descriptions here, Josh and Alden, where are you guys leaning?
I definitely think My Life as a Zucchini.
If I had to watch a movie right after this recording, it would be My Life as a Zucchini, especially
because the red turtle is Japanese.
No, because Sakula said it's like kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the Studio Ghibli movies, and as somebody who hasn't seen any of them, that probably turned me off from ever watching another one.
It's a redheaded stepchild only in its release because Miyazaki oversaw, who's like, the prolific director of all of the best Ghibli movies. He oversaw every other one. This is almost nothing like any other Ghibli movie. Like I said, I'd be hard-pressed to even call it one. If that's what's putting you off to it, then okay. I would see it as its own thing. I'm not going to lose sleep over it because from what I have seen of My Life as a Zucchini, it seems like something that would make me cry by the end of it. And I did not cry at the red turtle, so.
One thing I will say about My Life as a Zucchini, because I don't think it's making it very far, unfortunately, it has what I kind of was complaining about earlier, where it has this really like dark and emotional setup like Big Hero 6, but the rest of the movie is presented as like a dark comedy. And I respect that a lot because as someone, the way I cope with things is through humor. And I think like the fact that this movie has such a fucking brutal and dark opening to then just like this like whimsical kind of half fantasy, half, comedy narrative after that is fucking beautiful. And I would like to see it elevated here. So My Life as a Zucchini moves on. Now we're moving on to two movies about a young boy who goes on an adventure and plays a guitar. We've got Kubo and the Two Strings versus Coco.
And Jory isn't here.
Thank God we can slander Coco.
Yeah, I love Coco. I don't think that it holds a candle to Kubo. I think that it's very cookie cutter Pixar. You can tell exactly what's happening. You know from the very beginning when they set up the plot who his dad actually is. Like when they introduce that character, you're like, oh, okay, that's his dad, and you're gonna find out that the other guy's his bad guy. Beautiful. I did cry in the theater to that, but I do think that it's not as good as Kubo.
Yeah, I really like Kubo and the Two Strings because it does a lot of things right. It has this like Eastern influenced kind of myth world to it, but doesn't directly take a single story or appropriate any culture with that kind of narrative, in my opinion. It very much leans into a certain presentation, has beautiful stop motion animation. This might be the second best looking stop motion animated movie on this list, in my opinion. I love the soundtrack and the music and the actual like fantasy elements of this movie feel very similar to something like the early animated like Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies crossed with like Breath of the Wild. Like it feels like an epic, and it has really, really good action choreographed scenes, and the behind the scenes for Kubo and the Two Strings alone is a better movie than Coco. The fact that the animators went to these lengths to make this movie that underperformed at the box office and wasn't marketable towards kids, but really poured their hearts and souls into a movie, goes lengths beyond the Remember Me performance at the Academy Awards when Coco was nominated for Best Original Song.
Yeah, according to Jory, my entire opinion's around that performance, but I always found Coco very predictable, and neither of these movies to me should actually won Best Animated Feature. There's another movie on here that is leaps and bounds above Coco, and I think Coco should just be left in the first round right now.
Yeah, I've got more to say about Kubo, but we're gonna have to come back to it anyways.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to slander Coco. I like it, but it's not. I don't find it to be very strong.
Yeah, I mean the voice cast of Kubo is pretty fucking impressive too. You've got Charlize Theron, you've got Rooney Mara, George Takei, Matthew McConaughey. It's kind of stacked. I think a lot more people would like this if they gave it a shot, whereas Coco's a Pixar movie.
Oh, boy.
This is the cursed round. We've got Boss Baby versus Ferdinand, Alec Baldwin versus John Cena. I almost said Channing Tatum.
Well, when you put it that way.
It's John Cena easily. I think I have Boss Baby is probably the movie that I hate the most on this entire bracket. I can't believe that it got made. It is so very clearly a Dibby movie where it's literally just made to market little guys with big heads. It's viscerally unfunny and viscerally upsetting to watch, and it got a TV show that is just 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, I didn't watch Ferdinand. I don't think I've seen all of Boss Baby either. I feel like there were so many trailers for Boss Baby. Like, they were really trying to sell this shit to the masses. I think they were trying to ride off of, like, the cutesy success of, like, Minions and stuff, and they're like, everyone loves babies. What if we had one voiced by Alec Baldwin, and he's doing a bunch of, like, references to Glenn Ross, which is going to go over every single child in the audience's head, and probably even, honestly, most of the millennial parents. Ferdinand looked like a cutesy, forgettable kids movie. I don't think either one of these deserved a nomination, but I kind of...
Ferdinand is the least offensive.
I kind of think Ferdinand's the better choice here. I feel like John Cena's good casting. I feel like Alec Baldwin is horrible casting for a baby that's a boss. All right, we've got The Breadwinner versus Loving Vincent.
Here's where we have to give some love to The Breadwinner before we move on Loving Vincent.
Yeah, let's talk about The Breadwinner.
I love the story. It's very good. It's Mulan but better. Like as far as story goes, I think.
Yeah, it's like Mulan if it was set in like Taliban ruled Afghanistan instead of like feudal Japan.
It's Mulan if it had any like heart-wrenching qualities to it. Like, to put it simply, she cuts off her hair to pretend to be a boy because she keeps getting persecuted for being a girl in I forget what the country is. It's one of those Middle Eastern ones. Afghanistan, there you go. And she does that to like sell stuff on the side of the street as like a little boy, makes money from her for her family so they can escape the country. Beautiful story, really good animation. It's not, the best. I don't think that isn't it the same people that made Song of the Sea?
Well, Tom Moore did produce it, yes. So did Angelina Jolie and a few others as well. This was kind of more of like a bigger kind of collective, but yes, it was animated by Cartoon Saloon, who worked alongside Tom Moore and his other movies.
It's beautiful. But Loving Vincent is honestly one of the most unique movies ever created in the history of the world. We could talk more about that later. We could bring up the big selling point of Loving Vincent right now if we really want to, but we're gonna have to later.
We'll just move on with Loving Vincent right now because I feel like we all got a lot to say, and it's gonna go up against some big competition soon.
I agree, but I do think The Breadwinner's a great movie. If the seating was a little bit different and like, I don't know, this wasn't paired up against like Ferdinand, I think The Breadwinner could be potential Final Four material, but not against Loving Vincent. All right, now to some superhero animated films, because there weren't enough superhero movies in the 2010s. We've got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse versus Disney Pixar's Incredibles 2, aka You're Late, 15 years too late.
I don't think that this one is a competition at all.
For once, you're right.
We can talk about the things we like about Incredibles 2, but ultimately I think Spider-Verse should have had a better seed in this entire list, because it shouldn't go up next to against Loving Vincent in the next round. That's kind of upsetting to me.
Sorry, cape shit.
I was gonna try to defend Incredibles 2. I was gonna try.
You want to give it a shot? Guy who released a video essay called Incredibles 2 might suck after watching a trailer. Let's hear it.
I mean, animation-wise, Spider-Verse is really unique, but I feel like we can't deny that Incredibles 2, despite its flaws, still looks great. It still has that timeless aesthetic. I like that they did give more scenes to Elastigirl, because the first one was very Mr. Incredible's story. I think it was cool that we kind of saw another character's perspective. It would have been cooler, if this came out a couple of years before, because I think if you did 4 Incredibles movies and then have the perspective be each member of the Incredibles, this could actually be a really interesting franchise. But of course, that's not where they went, and here we are like 15 years later. But maybe they do want to continue that. I don't know. But It's cool they had it take place right after the first one. The sequence with the Underminer was really cool. I like the whole scene with Mr. Incredible's car. That's fun. It's got a Pixar third act villain, but I like that the brother of the villain, I guess, spoiler, that he's so nostalgic over the old-time superheroes and that.
Yeah, I like that he's not in on the scheme. He's just an idiot who's getting conned.
Yeah, that was refreshing too. Like, it had really good elements, it just didn't go for it.
It didn't have that Pixar heart that the first one had. It felt like a studio movie, which is a damn shame because they got Brad Bird and the original voice cast back, minus like the people who voiced the kids in the original. I think Violet stayed the same, but Dash and Jack were replaced or something like that.
The sequence with Jack and the squirrel.
The raccoon, yeah.
Yeah, it's got really, really good parts. I think the movie...
There's a lot of things I like about it.
The movie really falls off for me when those other superheroes came around. I didn't care. That's kind of how I felt about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I really liked Miles' story, but once those other Spider people got in, and then by the time you were introduced to them, they were already out of there by the time the climax happened, and it was just like, oh, okay. Like, the movie's title is Spider-Verse, and I feel like we only really got to go into two main Spider-Man, but I hope that changes for the sequel. Oscar Isaac as Spider-Man 2099, that could be really...
I will say, I really, really did like an Incredibles. I know you're saying you fell off with it when they introduced the new heroes. The one thing I love about the new heroes that they added, even if they're just side characters, is that the Incredibles are very much like Golden Age 60s heroes. Like, they are very much like that's what they're supposed to be, even though they're in like a ambiguous timed world. That's what they are. They represent like Golden Age heroes. And then you introduce these new ones with weird like portal powers, crushing powers, lava, whatever, all these weird powers. They're supposed to represent like the 70s and 80s, like these new weird superheroes that they started churning out. Because, like, you know, the old ones were old and they were like, okay, let's see what else we can throw at the wall and see what sticks. I appreciated that because it did feel like a nod to what they had started. It felt like a nod to like what was the point of the original Incredibles and what they represented, to like let's see, like, this is where it would naturally go. There would be more of them, and these ones should represent that era of superheroes, and I think that's really cool.
I think Incredibles 2 isn't a straight up offensively bad movie by any means. It just doesn't live up to the first in a way that really, really hurts as someone who likes the first Incredibles movie as much as I do. But it wasn't entirely a hack job. They did put in effort, and the animation alone is good, but compared to something that has as much visual flair as Spider-Verse, I don't even care for the story of Spider-Verse that much, if I'm being completely honest. It's all in the music and the visuals for me that elevate that movie as far as it goes. All right, up next we've got Isle of Dogs versus Mirai, which, Josh, if I had a gun pointed at your head and you had to answer this question, is Mirai a Studio Ghibli movie, what would your answer be?
This could be a really racist answer for me.
No, it's a simple yes or no, because I thought up until 30 seconds ago that it was, and I had to fact check myself so I didn't come off as a bigot.
Yeah, because I assumed it was a Studio Ghibli movie, not based on what it looks like, just based on the Japanese animated movies have all been Studio Ghibli so far, I believe.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually the biggest feat of this, is it was the first movie by Studio Chizo to be, or Chizo maybe, to be nominated for a Best Animated Feature, another breakout animated studio.
Studio Cheetos?
Isle of Dogs, another Wes Anderson movie. We talked about Fantastic Mr. Fox last week on the show, and Isle of Dogs is in a way kind of a spiritual successor to that, but also very much its own thing, leans into Japanese culture quite a bit, and has a great voice cast. If you like Fantastic Mr. Fox, they use the same recording techniques with this, but you get like Bryan Cranston in a lead role. You've got just an awesome ensemble, a lot of the usuals, but Edward Norton comes back from Moonrise Kingdom. You know, great cast here playing the ensemble. I don't really care for Mirai. I watched it the year it got nominated, just kind of assuming that it was going to be groundbreaking, because most of the movies that came out of Japan in the 2010s, I think to some capacity were. But I think Wes Anderson ripping off off, Japanese art style in a stop motion animated film was like way better than a pretty forgettable fantasy comedy coming of age family movie that Mirai is.
I did a bunch of research on this one, and there was nothing about it that I saw that was interesting or that I thought that I would like or that I would care for if I even watched it. And this, coming from a biased place because I fucking love Isle Dogs, there's nothing about this movie that made me even want to watch it, unlike literally every other movie that I haven't seen on this list.
I think Isle of Dogs moves on, Alden, unless you got a scorcher.
No, I'm on Isle of Dogs' side here.
Yeah, I really like Isle of Dogs.
All right, we've got How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World versus Toy Story 4.
Is How to Train Your Dragon 3 the one where the guy grew a beard?
Yes.
Toy Story 4 is really weird for me because I don't think it should have ever happened, but I think Rashida Jones did not write a bad script for it. I feel like if it's a standalone thing, it's fine, it's fun, but it didn't need to happen.
I feel like it feels more like what I was expecting from Toy Story 3 in a weird way, because I think the story makes some interesting decisions and differences from the first two movies in a way that Toy Story 3 doesn't, but I also think it loses a lot of its character and charm. It substitutes that for better animation, which doesn't matter when it comes to Pixar. Their oldest and worst movies hold up for me. And How to Train Your Dragon 3 is fine. It's not as good as the second one in any capacity, but it's a little bit better than the first. I really like the arc with Hiccup's mom, and I think that like Toothless having a love interest is fucking whatever. It feels like something out of an Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, but it happened. It was fine.
You know what makes me mad about Toy Story 4 is if you start the movie when like Woody sneaks into like the backpack when they go to like kindergarten, first day of kindergarten. From then on, you could just call this movie like a Woody spin-off movie, and that works completely fine. Take out some of the Buzz scenes. Why wasn't this just a Woody spin-off movie?
It should have been.
Why put it under this Toy Story franchise when it already had this great trilogy? And it's obvious by the end of Toy Story 4, because they're going to do a Toy Story 5. No doubt. At some point, we're going to get a fifth one. It's obvious that they're splitting off the gang so they could do a Toy Story 5. They had an opportunity to do a spin-off that still would have been offensive, but not as offensive to the fans of the original trilogy. This sounds like I'm talking about Star Wars when I don't say the word Toy Story now.
I think it's just such a shame as someone who grew up absolutely adoring the first two Toy Story movies. I mean, I watched them almost every day.
Wow.
I shit you not, both of them almost every day of my life from the time I was like 1.5 to probably 4 years old. I loved those movies. They were my like source for entertainment for such a long time. I think it's such a crying shame we got Toy Story 3 and 4. They're fucking bad movies in my opinion, in terms of they just don't have that heart that, like, I mean, they try, they have the schmaltzy music and the reprise of You've Got a Friend in Me, but at the end of the day, I don't think Woody's a good friend at the end of Toy Story 4. I think he's a fucking scumbag, and it's just devastating. I fuck Toy Story 4. I can't believe Jory thought I defended this shit.
Hate the How to Train Your Dragon movies. I think that they're ugly. I think that the characters are unremarkable. I hate the fact that there's a love interest for Toothless in this new one. I don't like the dragon layer. I don't like Hiccup's mom. I'm picking How to Train Your Dragon 3 though, because I am so morally and viscerally offended by the fact that Toy Story 4 even exists.
All right, so it looks like How to Train Your Dragon 3 gets by the skin of its teeth. We've got Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, versus I Lost My Body.
Take it away, Alden.
Yeah, this is an Alden round. Alden, let's hear it, man.
Well, I haven't seen the other one.
It's not great.
But yeah, no, I was not expecting very much from Ralph Breaks the Internet. I honestly, like, low expectations. I was initially going to watch it in the background, and it just caught my attention pretty quick. As soon as they go into the internet, it just kicks off. And I think it's funny that they're making fun of like Disney princesses, and then they say like she's from the other studio. all of that. I think its pacing is pretty consistent throughout the entire thing.
Wait, do they make fun of the woman from Brave and say she's from the other studio?
Yeah.
That's great.
That's better than the entire movie of Brave in that one line. She goes to another school.
That's funny they're that self-aware about Brave.
Yeah, but I definitely think this is a better Ready Player One than Ready Player One.
It's definitely a better Emoji movie than the Emoji movie, I'll give you that.
Without a doubt. I really like this. I think it's a good succession to the original. I don't know. Normally on sequels like this, I'm completely let down.
I will say that's a really good poster.
I watched I Lost My Body for the first time today. I have a natural disdain for Ralph Breaks the Internet. I think that it makes me mad that it exists. I think it does nothing original. Like, I like the jokes that Alden pointed out, to be honest. I do think it's got some good goofs in it.
I hate the title.
The title's terrible because it's literally referencing Kim Kardashian's ass.
Ralph Wrecks the Internet should have been the title.
It should have been, but it's not. It's a reference to Kim Kardashian's ass photo. I think that I Lost My Body deserves to beat it. Not because I think I think that it's a better movie, but only because it actually seems to care about what it's saying and doing. I think the ending of I Lost My Body is pretty bad. It sets up a pretty interesting story, like a really cool dynamic. The setup is really interesting. You've got a severed hand crawling through the city trying to get back to the main character. It's his hand, and you can tell it's his hand because they set it up from the very beginning. He's got a particular mole on his hand, and they show it all the time, and so you know that it's his hand trying to get back to him, but he's got both of his hands. Why is his hand trying to get back? He's got both of them. And they set up this interesting story. It's a love story also. He's trying to woo that girl, and it has a weird Evan Hansen-ness to it where he's kind of a creep, but it's better in the sense that Evan Hansen is an overt creep. He's like just a dumb guy, and he's trying his very best. I think it's really cute. There were actually some moments where I was at work and I was watching this movie, and there were some of the scenes between the two of them, and I could feel it in my stomach. I was like, oh shit, I should not be watching this at work. I'm gonna get all sad and shit at work. And I think that it's a more complete and more reputable and better movie overall than Ralph Breaks the Internet.
I think both of these movies kind of unfortunately lean in the camp of just being forgettable, because although I do think the chemistry between the two characters in I Lost My Body is the strongest element of it, I think the romance arc is the best part of the movie by a lot. I also think it's actually just like a part of the movie. Like, there's stuff at the beginning and there's stuff at the end that just don't connect to that at all. It feels kind of like how Soul has an interesting setup. I know that's a Pixar movie that we'll have to talk about when we talk about 2020 Best Animated Picture noms.
Is this a trilogy?
Not yet. We have to finish this fucking decade if that's possible. I might not be here, but someone will be. It's like when a character just swaps their soul with a animal for no fucking reason. It's like, I don't want to be watching this. Get me back to like the emotional stuff and like the
hand stuff is really fun to watch though. It's really entertaining. It's well animated.
It's the best animated parts of the movie, I will say that.
But you're right though. There are a lot of parts in I Lost My Body that are so disconnected from the story that like they don't even need to be there. Like, this could have been a 30-minute short film. Like, the parts about his parents dying and him like recording stuff with his microphone. Like,
I think if Ralph Breaks the Internet came out a little closer to the first movie, I think this would be an entirely different conversation, because I think it would just feel like a sequel. But because there was like 6 or 7 years in between, I feel like there's like people coming to Wreck-It Ralph 2 like it's some sort of like Toy Story 3 kind of situation, and I think that's why people were really let down by it. I don't hate Ralph Breaks the Internet. I don't think it's a great movie by any means, but I do think it has a lot of the same comedic tone, and it has good gags all the way through. I'm not bored watching either one of these movies, but I think more people would get with the kinetic kind of joke a minute Ralph Breaks the Internet stuff. I don't think the story's as good as the first one, but I think it's a fine film. I don't really care either way here. I just think both these movies are overrated as shit.
I think that I Lost My Body actually tries something.
Yeah, it does.
Tries to say something to you, even if it comes across really muddled and a little bit clunky. I think that I Lost My Body tries something. Where Ralph Breaks the Internet to me feels like a studio machine has created it.
Yeah, Alden, what new ground does Ralph Breaks the Internet push for you?
I don't know. I don't really think there's a whole lot new going on there, but I do appreciate the dynamic and the conflict between Ralph and I don't know, Von Schweetz, whatever her name is, Penelope Von Schweetz.
Josh, if you had to watch one of these movies for the first time, which are you picking? Are you going to go with the safe choice, the movie that's a sequel to the movie that you liked enough to talk about earlier, or are you watching this one about a guy losing his arm and his parents dying and he falls in love with someone?
I'd probably go with the more experimental one. Like, Ralph Breaks the Internet, I've had every opportunity to watch that movie and I just haven't.
Yeah, I think it's just chilling on Disney Plus waiting for someone to click on it.
Yeah,
just begging for someone to watch it.
All right, I Lost My Body can move on. And the final round of the right side of the bracket.
is that Missing Link?
Yes, we've got Klaus versus Missing Link.
I never thought we would say these words live on a podcast again. Missing Link.
You've definitely talked about Missing Link on this podcast multiple times, both the movie and the podcast.
Okay, mister, I don't remember any episode of the podcast.
I don't remember the outcomes. I can remember events.
I want to hear a good take for Missing Link because I haven't seen it. I've seen people review it, and I think that it looks cute, but I have seen Klaus, and there's a lot of like breakthrough 2D animation in it that I really enjoy, and I think that the story is like a cool take on like the idea of the origin of Santa Claus, but I haven't actually seen Missing Link, so I'd love to hear like an argument for it.
I'm going to preface this with I love one of these movies, and I could care less about the other. Klaus is a like origin story of sorts for the Santa Claus mythos, and has like a mail carrier essentially moved to this like kind of far off distant land, and he has to solve like a conflict between these two like rival communities, and essentially uses this guy named Klaus to do that. It sets up the Santa Claus origin in a way that is pretty unique and very refreshing. And Missing Link is a movie with like an A-list cast. You've got like Hugh Jackman, Zoe Saldana, and like Zach Galifianakis as the Missing Link, and it's about this like explorer who is trying to like chart new territories on a map, and comes across like a Sasquatch dude that's like way more human than he ever was, and I think that's like the relationship is kind of what makes this movie work. In a lot of ways, I feel like Missing Link feels like an early Pixar movie in certain regards, because it has these kind of budding forces. It has like a Mike Wazowski and a Sully that are kind of like at times pinned against each other, but want the same exact outcome. And for that, I think that Missing Link kind of thrives in a old school kind of way. It totally underperformed and bombed in a huge way. This movie had a way higher budget than it needed because they went with like an A-list voice cast, and Klaus was a straight to Netflix movie that got critically high reviews. Yeah, I can tell you I love one of these movies and could give less of a shit about the other.
For me, that's Klaus. I enjoyed it. I didn't even like really think I was gonna like it because I really don't care for Christmas movies most of the time. The animation itself, I actually looked in a long time ago into what they did to achieve the 2D animation that they have in Klaus, and they created like a new engine for recognizing what like these. Because look at these characters, you can barely see them in the poster, but they're these like super bulbous and misshapen and misformed like cartoon characters. They're cartoon characters, but they created this algorithm where they basically identified the contours of the face of a 2D character. So it's still 2D, but the computer knows where the shadows are supposed to be. And so they could place a light in the scene and it would light them accordingly. So you have these really fluid, ridiculous, like squash and stretch 2D animations, but they're lit like they're 3D, and it looks so good. And then the story is like actually really, really good for a Santa Claus origin.
It's way better than it has any right to be. I did not cry once watching Klaus. I cried twice watching Klaus. The ending of this movie feels exactly like the ending of Monsters, Inc., and I did not expect it to.
Yeah, I think Klaus should move on just because I don't...
Klaus is Kino.
The missing link itself looks ugly, and I hate his face.
Fuck me. These are the two best movies on the entire bracket. I hate that they're pinned against each other. But I have to go with my heart. It's Shaun the Sheep, the movie. It speaks volumes to the human condition. God damn it, I wasn't trying to crack there. I think what Shaun the Sheep is able to do in a feature-length movie, about, I think it's like 95 minutes or something, not a single line of dialogue is muttered in this film, and it kept me captivated sitting alone in a completely empty theater watching it. I thought that it's Aardman's animation at its absolute best.
When did this come out?
2016? Maybe 2015.
That sounds right.
This film does a lot right. It has that same kind of polish that the theatrically released Aardman movies have, but it has the tone of the early Wallace and Gromit shorts that I fucking love. This movie feels like one long slapstick hijinks kind of movie, and it is so kinetic and doesn't skip a beat. It feels like what a Tom and Jerry-esque movie should be, where you're just watching this cat and mouse game for an entire hour and a half. But every time a cartoon that has that kind of classic comedic dynamic gets brought to the big screen, they're like, oh, we need to have like main characters, and we need to have these like human characters that are relatable and like an arc and all that. Shaun the Sheep doesn't even really try. All of the sheep escape the fucking farm and go to London because they accidentally drug the farmer and send him into the city by himself, and he has a whole amnesia arc. And it's two things that I'd absolutely hate: an amnesia arc and like a ragtag group of people trying to find their friend, like a boneless Pixar movie. But it knocks it out of the fucking park. Anomalisa is the most unique movie on this list, and I think that what it has to say about coming of age, dying, like sexual relations, all of that shit, all of the actual deep human level issues of our time and before our time is addressed in this very short, an 80-minute experimental ass movie written by, I think, the best writer in Hollywood, and I'm still picking Shaun the Sheep the movie over it because it seriously blew me away how simplistic and how strong a movie like this could be. I think it took Aardman something like 9 years to make. They really put their best team on it. It is extremely polished, extremely cinematic, but doesn't lose that Saturday morning cartoon feel. And for me, I think it's the best way to turn a episodic show into a feature-length film. Anomalisa is great, but it's not even in my top 5 Charlie Kaufman movies.
I just can't believe you would say that Shaun the Sheep the movie has so much to say about the human condition up against Anomalisa, which is quite literally about the human condition. That's exactly...
in every conceivable way.
That's entirely what it is. I'm going to bring up, because I knew that I didn't want to bring it up when we first were talking about Anomalisa. One of my favorite things about Anomalisa, Alden, Josh, have you seen this movie?
No.
My favorite thing about it is that you have 3 voice actors in the entire movie. There's so many people in it, though. It's basically this dichotomy of, like, you have the main character who's got his own voice actor, I forget his name, and then you've got like the main love interest who her name is Lisa. There's a reason why he calls her Anomalisa. It's part of the story. Those are the 2 only voice actors. There's one more guy, and he voices every single other character, including but not limited to the main character's ex-wife, the main character's son, Every single human being he interacts with, from the taxi driver to the bellboy to the guy at the front desk to every person working at a desktop to every person in the bar that he goes to, every person working at the hotel, every single human being he interacts with, and that's part of the story, is that he feels like every other human being is just the same amalgamous blob of person, and he hates it, and he hates talking to people because he hates hearing the same shitty thing. And he goes home to his family and he hears his wife and his son, and they have the same voice, and they're having a surprise like welcome home party for him, but they everybody sounds the same. He doesn't even know who these people are. And then he meets Lisa, who has this unique distinct voice, and and he falls in love with her immediately, and like there's this like very intimate and very real sex scene that's like choreographed in such a way to feel like something that might happen in real life, where it's like it doesn't do the Hollywood thing where it's just like they fall into each other's arms and then fade to black. It's like they literally go through every little like awkward detail of what it's like to hook up with somebody. The next morning he's like I love you, I'm gonna leave my wife for you, I want this to happen. And can I spoil like this twist?
Yes.
Okay. And then what ends up happening is they start talking about this, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. You can tell I'm okay with this. Like, let's do it. And as they start having this conversation, her voice starts to morph into the other voice, the voice that he hears from everybody else, and she starts doing things that he sees that he doesn't like she chews with her mouth full, or she lets food dribble out of her mouth, or just little things, little tiny things that you see that like might bother you in a person. And he immediately her voice completely morphs into this amorphous blob of voice that everybody else has, and he realizes like, oh fuck, like there is no escape. There is no love at first sight where I can just escape this. He's just like, this is just me. I'm broken.
The script sounds great. The only negative from all that is it sounds so depressing.
It is, and that is a negative. You're right. You can watch Shaun the Sheep the movie and not feel like afterwards you have to go kill yourself.
It's a Charlie Kaufman movie, though. Every single one of his movies leaves me in that exact mindset, and I think that's why it works so well. The only reason I don't have the same love for it is I feel like everything you described is like the experience you get on the first watch, whereas every single one of his other movies, I have this deep sense to want to rewatch it and get a different perspective on it. And whether it be even movies that he only wrote and not directed, being John Malkovich or Adaptation, or his more recent efforts like Synecdoche, New York, and I'm Thinking of Ending Things, there's like this gravitas to every single decision made where, depending on the mindset in which you're in, there's another interpretation, there's another layer, there's another thing that just adds more to it. But dude, I mean, you got the point of the movie in the first fucking go. It took a lot of me and my friends when Anomalisa came out, multiple viewings. I went and saw Anomalisa in theaters 3 times the year it came out, just because it had that richness and that depth to it, and I was like, I gotta fucking... It's one of those movies that inspired me to actually actively pursue filmmaking, because there's nothing else like it ever. There probably will never be another movie like it, and the closest thing to it is other Charlie Kaufman movies, but those all have like real actors and have live action portrayals of these same themes.
What's that other is I'm Thinking of Ending Things a Kaufman movie?
Yes. Written and directed.
Because as far as Kaufman movies go, I'm pretty sure that's the only other one that compares to this one for me, as a experience. And that one is even more hard to grasp. You kind of really have to think about that one to understand what it's even about at all.
Yeah, I watched it 2 times back to back just because I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? Let me spend 3 hours again to watch it again. Yeah.
I'm willing to accept the fact that I'm probably gonna lose this one. I've watched Shaun the Sheep the movie more than once. I have not watched Anomalisa more than once. I watched it today between phone calls, and it still racked me. But I do agree. I think that if I rewatched Anomalisa, I probably would not have the same visceral reaction.
I think why Shaun the Sheep the movie should be elevated in this scenario is when it comes to the other film, we're still getting movies like I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Like, beyond animation, we're still getting films like those. It's not like this genre stopped. I don't know if we're going to get another Shaun the Sheep, the movie. Like, this is a...
Well, Netflix greenlit a sequel. It came out and no one watched it.
To the surprise of no one.
That's kind of the issue here is, but I love, like, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I sung the praises in the DreamWorks video. So it's just like, and when it comes to that Tom and Jerry, like, slapstick humor, which I don't want to say it's like a smart humor, but it's well choreographed and well written, and we don't get movies like that anymore. Like, we just talked about Ferdinand and whatever, like, that's just whole movie, I'm sure, full of John Cena saying one-liners, which is fine, but like, we get like 20 of those movies a year now. We get we get a movie like Shaun the Sheep, the movie, like, it took 9 years to make. We get it almost every decade.
Alden, where are you leaning on this one between Shaun the Sheep, the movie, and Anomalisa?
See, I was like on a Shaun the Sheep kind of gang for a minute, but Anomalisa seems like a way stronger movie.
John, you did such a good job defending a movie that I absolutely fucking love. I think I'm gonna have to give up my Shaun the Sheep, the movie agenda here. I genuinely think that Anomalisa is the best animated movie of the 2010s. Even if the elements of Shaun the Sheep, the movie, are what I look for in an animated movie, Anomalisa transcends the genre or the category, in my opinion. The fact that this didn't get a Best Picture nomination but fucking Up and Toy Story 3 did is an insult to the entire industry. Anomalisa is a masterpiece. It's just not my favorite of Kaufman's masterpieces.
Well, we're talking about animated movies, so that makes sense. Let me just say, though, every time I did my bracket, I always made Anomalisa lose to Shaun the Sheep because I figured that was never going to happen. This is not, I'm Doctor Strange right now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going up against Rango for finals. I did not have Rango in the finals either, so this is nuts.
I didn't either. I mean, I love Rango, but this is not where I expected this to go even a little bit.
All right, up next we've got My Life as a Zucchini versus Moana.
Moana?
I really like Moana, but I feel like My Life as a Zucchini might be a better pick.
I definitely think for the category it makes more sense. I mean, but again...
But would it make more sense for the category? Because, like, it has... I'm sure it has a really good story, but Moana, you also have the music and the visuals, like, the water and the sand look great in that movie.
It's always nice seeing advancements in the, like, software and technology that Disney has built for their movies, but at the same time, it's just the same thing slightly better every time, whereas My Life as a Zucchini is a fairly unique art style.
I don't know. I'd argue this one's a little different, though, especially in the sequence when The Rock is singing You're Welcome, and they cut to, like, his muscle tattoos, and it turns into, like, a little 2D animation there, and I really like that. I think this movie's a little more unique than what we give credit for, compared to, like, Frozen.
That's kind of where my argument for this leans. Is from an artistic standpoint, I don't think Moana does a whole lot new with its story that we haven't seen before, but I think what it does with its presentation is pretty great. I mean, the water looks about as good as the water in Finding Dory, which came out the same year. You know, the voice acting is, for the most part, celebrity voice casting, but they found a no-name for Moana, and there was a great depth to find the right person to play that role. And I feel like Moana does a better job of capturing the heights that the Disney Renaissance reached than Tangled, Frozen, Princess and the Frog.
Is someone playing the Moana soundtrack, or am I losing my mind?
I can't hear it.
You're losing your mind.
Are you playing the Moana soundtrack, Josh?
I heard singing from somebody's.
I can see the argument either way.
I think I have to cast my vote as My Life as a Zucchini.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Moving on. I like Moana a lot. It's actually one of my favorites as far as Disney princesses and Pixar movies go. I really enjoyed it. I loved watching it in theaters.
Yeah, it's in my top 3 Disney princesses princess movies.
I think My Life as a Zucchini has such a stronger emotional core.
All right, we got Kubo and the Two Strings versus Ferdinand, which Ferdinand got the, yeah, you're cool pass up against Boss Baby, and Kubo and the Two Strings sing the praises of already. I think this is a no contest unless someone's got a hot take.
We don't need to spend time on this one, I don't think.
I agree. Kubo and the Two Strings is moving on. Loving Vincent versus Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I hate that this is what I was talking about. I hate that this is a matchup because these two should have been on opposite sides of the bracket. I could easily see this one.
I did this by chronological order. I'm sorry they came out 1 year after the next.
I'm not shitting on you. I'm just saying I could see these two being the final two choices and us having to choose between them because, like,
I kind of agree with that.
it's such an innovative movie, even for a superhero movie.
It's such an overrated movie.
You have Loving Vincent, which is a movie made of 65,000 oil paintings. And that alone is like, no movie on this entire bracket, no matter what way you slice it, has that much love and effort put into it, where you had oil painters working day and night to create 65,000 paintings that created a film about a beloved artist in his style.
Going into Loving Vincent, I knew of what like the animation would be in a style, but I didn't know much of the story or anything. I just thought it was like a tribute to Vincent van Gogh, and little did I know it's pretty much a noir about his death, which I personally never really like looked into it all that much. Like, I knew what happened to the guy, but like outside of like learning it in school, never really like dabbled in it. So I found myself like very immersed in this main character visiting all these different people and giving their perspectives, and you find out as you go through it, you can't trust some of these narrators when they talk about Vincent, and really you end the movie not really knowing who tells the truth. You think you kind of get the definitive answer, but it leaves kind of open-ended, which I really like. But we talked about it before recording, Nate. The movie goes a little too long.
I think it could be cut down about 20 minutes and be a stronger film for it. Like, I feel like they could have saved about 25,000 hand-drawn paintings and made it a little bit more efficient.
I was just the animation is fantastic, top notch. The flashbacks that are in black and white, like, you could tell me they are shot like live action and I would believe you. I know kinda they were, but like
all of it was rotoscoped. That's one thing to say. Like, to say that it's all oil paintings is absolutely true, because the other thing is they did paint over other oil paintings, so there's not actually 65,000 paintings out there of this movie. They did paint over them because that's how you would do regular animation. You know, you have the previous frame, you look it over, you draw over the next one. So the logical conclusion was, okay, we take this one, take a picture of it, draw over it, make it look like the next one. So there's not actually 65,000 paintings here, and it was rotoscoped. They shot all of the shots and then they painted those shots. But that being said, this movie feels like a fucking acid trip. Like, I am I allowed to say this on the podcast? I've done a bunch of acid.
Yeah, fuck it.
It's probably my favorite drug of choice. If you want to know what being on acid is like from a visual standpoint, not like an emotional and physical standpoint, but like from a visual, just like what you might see, this is probably very, very close if you never want to do it. It is, and that's not a sell point. That's just like a testament to what it looks like when you stitch oil paintings together to look like a film in the style of Vincent van Gogh.
I think anyone who knows me knows that Amadeus is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I feel like Loving Vincent is kind of celebrating an artist in the same way that Amadeus celebrates Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. I mean this in the sense that if Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart hopped in Bill and Ted's time machine and had the knowledge of making a movie about his own life, he would have made the movie Amadeus. And I feel that same way about Loving Vincent. If Vincent van Gogh was thrown in a fucking TARDIS and brought to 2018 or 17 when this movie was released and was told to make a movie about his life, this is the movie that he would have made. And I think that is such a beautiful way to capture an artist's life, and more importantly, his death, from this disjointed kind of almost interview and testimonial kind of perspective, because he was an artist who died a poor and like broken man, and his art became so much more appreciated after he was gone, and that is tonally resonant throughout this entire fucking film. And even though the visuals are fucking beautiful, the things that are within the painting are bleak and sad and moody and depressing. And to follow your point, Sakula, I've never done acid, but I've done mushrooms, and I know what the come down of a psychedelic trip is, and I feel like the emotions of this movie have that same sense of humility and grounding you to what's going on visually. And I think that this movie is a tier above almost everything we've talked about, and I feel bad that it's paired up against Into the Spider-Verse here, because in terms of mainstream accessibility and pushing the boundaries of animation in a successful superhero movie, it does it all. I think I put this at like my second favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, and I'd only seen it once at the time. Loving Vincent, on the contrary, is a movie I've seen 2 times, and each time has stuck with me and has made like the way I've processed every encounter of my next day dependent on how I felt watching this movie, in the same way that your perspective can be changed from doing drugs or experiencing some sort of high art. I think that Loving Vincent blows Spider-Verse out of the water.
I want to hear an argument for Spider-Verse before we pick Loving Vincent, because I feel like it's really not a contest as much as it should be. That's why I hate that these movies are pinned against each other.
Alden, do you have a Spider-Man hot take here?
Not really. I mean, I can give praises on the comic book animation style that they just absolutely perfected, but it's just like, you can't compare that to legit oil paintings. I don't know. It's definitely refreshing to see a Miles Morales story told as well as it was, and in a mainstream context.
Yeah, his uncle dies and he learns about great power comes great responsibility. It's a really original story, guys.
Again, Josh is racist, but...
Well, his uncle's a supervillain. He's not like Uncle Ben.
Yeah, for like a scene, for like one scene.
Yeah, no, I disagree with Josh and the other Spider people. Like, I really appreciated all of their presence. I think like
I appreciate them, but it doesn't become a Spider-Verse movie until literally the last 10 minutes.
I have a Van Gogh painting right next to me, guys. We need to move on.
I have one in here too.
And of course, nobody's gonna get confused because they still have Peter Parker in the beginning of the movie. There's so much Peter Parker in this movie. I wish it had more Miles in it. That's what I'm hoping for the sequel.
I agree.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty confident that the sequel will be more of what I personally wanted out of this, but I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it. I really enjoy it. I can watch it over and over, but it's just...
That's true. I don't think I could watch Loving Vincent like 4 days in a row, but I could probably have Spider-Verse on in the background 4 days in a row and be totally fine with myself.
Yeah.
All right. Loving Vincent finds a way. Up next, we've got Isle of Dogs versus How to Train Your Dragon 3. I think this is probably a speed round, right? No one's got a hot take for How to Train Your Dragon 3. Yeah. Okay, cool.
No.
Sick. I Lost My Body or Klaus. For me, this is a no contest.
Yeah, no, another speed round, Klaus.
Yeah, it could be Klaus.
Klaus is Christmas Kino. Something that we need more of.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Anomalisa versus My Life, a Zucchini.
That's a matchup.
Is it?
I mean, I know it's one-sided, but this is an interesting matchup.
I think tonally they're very unique movies in this category. I think that one of them deals with, I guess, you know, what it means to be alive in a way that is like very somber and depressing and self-reflective, and the other is like, well, this situation sucks and yeah, you're dead because of it, but we can have some fun with that still. So like, if these were concept albums, like if I were to like experience these two different movies in a different art form, the way that I appreciate art more, I'd be leaning with Zucchini. But because these are movies, and through the narrative language of film, I value those somber kind of more reflective takes, I'm going with Anomalisa here. But if like this was like, I don't know, Bjork versus like Oingo Boingo, I'm going with Oingo Boingo.
I'm going with Anomalisa, but I have to defend My Life as a Zucchini. What I was gonna say before, the side characters, the friends at the orphanage, are so well written and characterized. They have this moment where they go through in the early part of the movie where they talk, like the redheaded kid explains to Zucchini all of the traits of the orphan. Every single one of them has had something in their lives happen that has made them act a certain way, and you actually see like the way that they react based on how they were treated. I don't know. Like I said, my camp is in Anomalisa. I want to fight for Zucchini, but I don't know that I can.
Yeah, I think you gave a good defense, but it's Anomalisa. Up next, Kubo and the Two Strings versus Loving Vincent.
Can we talk about the twist in Kubo?
Sure, yeah.
I didn't predict Kubo's twist at all. I didn't see it coming even from a light year away. It was just kind of in the background, and then it was like, oh, by the way, here's this, and I was like, oh shit. Those are his parents. That's wild. Wasn't expecting that. It was a nice twist. It didn't feel like it was like slapped on, but it did feel like I was like, oh, I really, really wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, it's a twist that adds a little bit more to the story, but it doesn't necessarily feel like earned. Like, it doesn't set it up in the same way like Spirited Away kind of sets it up, because it has like the same twist as a lot of these animated movies where it's like, ooh, these like supporting characters that guide this character through a journey turn out to be their parents. It's like, okay, this is a weird like kind of like twist that is reoccurring through a lot of these, and including Coco itself, except grandparent, but same thing. But I do think that it also doesn't take away from the movie either. The characters don't change after it's revealed that they're his parents. They continue to help him in the same way that they've been helping him the whole time. It's just he's now learned this information and is like, oh damn, it be that way. I feel like Kubo and the Two Strings might be a better blend between that accessible, my parents don't have to lean over and ask me what the hell's going on in the movie, and this higher art form. I think I said earlier it's the second best looking 2D animated movie or stop motion animated movie on this list. Well, my number one was Shaun the Sheep, the movie.
I'm still surprised. I think that this matchup should have been Shaun the Sheep versus Loving Vincent based on what you were going with.
I'm kind of torn here because I think Loving Vincent is the more unique movie and is the better art piece, but I think Kubo has a lot of artistic value within itself as well. And to top that off, I feel like it's a movie just about anyone could sit down and enjoy. If they can sit through a Star War, they can sit through Kubo and the Two Strings.
Here's my problem with putting Kubo above Loving Vincent in this ranking, which has nothing to do with these two movies in and of themselves, really, but it's that I can't put Kubo and the Two Strings above Spider-Verse. That bothers me, and that's why I think that those two shouldn't have been matched up so soon, because, like, if Kubo goes above Spider-Verse, and it's like, what is anything? Are we, like, what is life?
I disagree. I think I would be putting up a fight for Kubo against Spider-Verse, in all honesty.
I just put Loving Vincent, though, on par, like, in a totally different tier than a lot of these movies on this bracket, where I don't want to say, like, animated movies are, like, lesser than live action, but just from a personal standpoint, I've just always preferred live action. But Loving Vincent, I would put on par, like, if you had to tell me, like, the top 10 movies of 2017, I think this came out, Loving Vincent's probably on there, and it is debating with, like, other movies that came out that year, some of the movies that are nominated for Best Picture. I would definitely rewatch Loving Vincent before I watch, like, fucking, what was the movie with that Gary Oldman played Winston Churchill?
The Darkest Hour.
The Darkest Hour.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Loving Vincent is a tier above Kubo and the Two Strings, but I think that Kubo and the Two Strings would give it a better run for its money than a Spider-Verse, personally.
Hey, Kubo deserves all of the praise in the world, and if you haven't seen it, then you're missing the fuck out. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I think Loving Vincent should move on, but yes, please watch Kubo and the Two Strings if you haven't yet. Up next, we've got Isle of Dogs versus Klaus. And I think that this is a fair fight.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that Isle of Dogs is a very, very good movie. I think it fits in with the rest of Wes Anderson's filmography quite well, but I don't think it brings anything new to the table for his aesthetic or his art style than coming back to what he did with Fantastic Mr. Fox and telling that in a different setting, telling it in a maybe a more bleak setting than the kind of colorful whimsy that Fantastic Mr. Fox finds itself in. But for me, the holiday season's right around the corner, and talking about Klaus earlier made me really freaking eager to rewatch this movie. I watched it for the first time last holiday season, and it knocked my socks off. It immediately moved its way up into like my top 10, top 20 favorite Christmas movies of all time. And I think for a new movie to do that is incredibly difficult to achieve. And I think the animation style is awesome. I think the characterization, there's like 5 or 6 major supporting characters in this movie that get a pretty well-developed arc, whether it be like the school teacher that the mailman befriends, to even the fisherman boat guy played by Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, you fucking legend.
Oh god, his character's so good in that movie.
Klaus has so much going for it, and also there's like characters in the movie that don't speak at all, and you understand what they're emotionally communicating in a movie that was just put on Netflix for like fitting in with a Christmas lineup. It blows my mind how good this movie is, and I think more people need to see it, and they can, because it's so freaking accessible. Whereas Isle of Dogs just feels like one of those movies that's made specifically for people like me that love movies. So I went and saw it, and I thought it was fine. I thought it was like a B-tier Wes Anderson movie. I think there's like 5 or 6 of his movies I prefer to Isle of Dogs, and especially Fantastic Mr. Fox.
I have to say, I agree. I think that this is a really, really, actually, like, this is probably the fairest one that I've seen, because both of these movies have very, very revolutionary styles of animation. Not to say that the one in Isle of Dogs is revolutionary per se, but the way that he uses it in his Wes Anderson style, I think it's better than Fantastic Mr. Fox. If you put Isle of Dogs against Fantastic Mr. Fox, Isle of Dogs wins every day.
Maybe from an animation standpoint, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that from a voice cast perspective, Isle of Dogs is incredible. I'm trying to figure out where I stand on this, because Klaus is incredible. You're right, it's Kino. It's a surprisingly good movie, and if you haven't seen it, it's on fucking Netflix. Go fucking watch it, you goddamn piece of shit. Go watch the movie. Like, it's so easy to watch, and the voice acting is great. The story is actually like surprisingly heart-wrenching for a Santa Claus origin story. Like, if you just said the words Santa Claus origin story to any human being on earth, they'd be like, okay.
Hey Josh, have you seen Klaus?
Santa Claus origin story does give me a little like, because my canon origin will always be Santa Claus is coming to town.
That's fair. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember you praising it when it came out. And I definitely see like the benefits of it. I think Isle of Dogs is good, but I'm also like, I don't know, I'm also not like a huge Isle of Dogs fan or anything. Like, I'm not gonna like vouch for it either.
Josh, I think you would find the main character of Klaus, the like post office dude, very, very relatable.
Oh no.
A little too relatable in the first and second act, and then by the third you're like, oh, there is hope.
I am an Isle of Dogs stan, and I'm kind of leaning towards Klaus. It's funny because like when I did this bracket by myself, just doing it, because I've done it like 4 times, because I did it when I first saw the bracket, and then I did it after doing some research, and then I did it after watching all like the movies that I have missed. Not all of them, but the ones that I watched at work today. I did it after that too. Klaus still never made it this far, and honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards Klaus. I'm kind of seeing it for what it is. Isle of Dogs is great.
Alden, where are you at, my friend?
I think I'm kind of standing with Isle of Dogs.
It sounds like, John, you're kind of the deciding factor here. Josh says that he's kind of leaning towards Isle of Dogs as well. Hasn't seen Klaus.
I mean, I would go with Klaus. It's the holiday season soon.
Yeah, it's definitely like something I'm going to try and watch with people this year.
Hell yeah. Klaus is moving on. We've got Anomalisa versus Loving Vincent.
I hate this.
This is tough.
I feel like I would have an easier time with something like Loving Vincent, just trying not to feel absolutely terrible.
Yes, I agree.
Anomalisa really does make you feel like shit by the end of the movie, and that is something against it.
Well, it's by design, but it still is like, damn, I'm not watching this movie more than like once a year at most.
Exactly. I'm not going to rewatch it tonight. You know, I'm not going to watch it this week. I'm not going to watch it this month. I watched it today on my phone.
Get real.
Heart-wrenched by it. Like, it still hurt my soul. Loving Vincent was a good watch. It was a trippy watch, and it made me invested in what happened with Vincent Van Gogh and like how he could have gone. It's a more accessible. I think that if you just as far as accessibility, you put these two movies into a broad audience, people will pick Loving Vincent for a number of reasons.
I think too, like even since this movie's release, this new like Van Gogh kind of pop-up like 3D environment art installation that's been here in New York, like they're bringing it back in January. It left because they took it.
Oh, Erin will love to hear that because she was so mad she missed it.
There's more appreciation, I think, for like Vincent Van Gogh and his art now than there ever has been, thanks to movies like these and thanks to like passion projects and art installations and things like that. And while I think Anomalisa is a fantastic movie made by one of the best, I think that Anomalisa would thrive just as much if it was a live action film with the same attention to detail with the sound design and with the voice acting, or I guess in that case it would just be acting, than Loving Vincent. If Loving Vincent was just another Van Gogh biopic, like the one with Willem Dafoe that was really good that came out like a year after this.
I thought it was the same year. Maybe it was the year after.
I think it was either the year after or the year before, but either way, the fact that they lean into his art to make a story about him just feels a tier elevated in terms of presentation and like class to me. But at the same point, yeah, between Anomalisa, I think most people are going to have a better time watching Loving Vincent because it has this unique kind of mystery and narrative to it, whereas Anomalisa is very much an art introspective piece that most people would probably turn off 15 minutes in. Like, realistically, I think a lot of people are scared to embrace that self-reflection that the movie presents you with, whereas Loving Vincent functions as a biography picture.
If nobody had given me any influence, I would have picked Loving Vincent because I believe that it's a better movie, but I was really wanting to defend Anomalisa, but what you just said kind of really resonated with me, that Anomalisa could have been made as a live action film. It could have been, even like this, the weird psychedelic stuff that they did, because I didn't even mention this in my breakdown of the movie before, but there's this other sequence where he's going through like, not even an identity crisis, but he's basically like breaking through universes and he's having trouble understanding reality, and they do this thing where I told you they have two different facial pieces for his face, and those pieces just start randomly fluctuating, and he's looking at himself and he's like, and you can hear the clacking as if they're clicking on the facial pieces, and it's like, and they're just randomly, and it doesn't even look like animation, it just looks like they're literally just randomly putting on new pieces of his face.
Oh, this just in. Walt Disney Animation Studios just confirmed a live-action remake of Anomalisa starring... No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you were serious for a second.
Yeah, I was about to puke.
Starring Jared Leto.
I would watch it.
Stop.
Loving Vincent versus Klaus for the final four, going up against fucking Rango.
I feel like the only one that has a chance against Rango is Loving Vincent.
Yeah.
Both of these... Either one of these movies would beat Rango for me, personally.
Yeah, I think both of these have a solid chance.
Nate, okay, first of all, Alden, I want to hear why you think Klaus could beat Rango, because like I really feel like comparing Klaus to Loving Vincent is not a fair comparison. Let's try and figure out why Klaus might beat Rango, because I think the argument for Loving Vincent versus Rango is a very compelling argument, but Klaus versus Rango, I feel like, is a based argument that might not happen.
I can do it right now. I think Klaus and Rango have a very similar setup of this person gets thrown into a situation where they don't want to be. Rango gets ostracized to this random fucking desert town where they have a water crisis, and he's like the only line of defense that they have because everyone assumes that he's a new sheriff, and because he's an egotistical maniac, he's like, yeah, fine, I'll be a new sheriff. Whereas in Klaus, the main character gets assigned to be the post officer of this like defunct town on the brink of a civil war, and has been for hundreds of years because there's this generational conflict that like has roots for like no reason. There's not actually any problem there. They just want to fight with each other. And they're very similar setups of this person gets thrown into this scenario, and they have, in order to leave and live the life that they want to live, have to overcome that major conflict at the heart of their town and in the heart of this situation that they're presented with. But Rango doesn't have the supporting cast that Klaus has. Rango is pretty much the only character you give a shit about in the end of the movie.
I disagree.
Maybe the fucking salamander chick with the shotgun, like, sure, maybe she's cool, but she freezes a lot and is kind of weird. But, like, dude, even the little fucking elf girl is way cooler than any other character in Rango besides Rango. Not to mention the titular character Klaus, who more or less carries the entire movie. We've already talked about the Doc Man, played by Norm Macdonald, but even the villains of this movie, by the end, you're kind of like, they're not bad people, they're just dumb. And that's life. Rango has a bunch of pathetic townsfolk and this one hero that's there to save them who doesn't have any idea what it means to be a hero. I think that Klaus is the stronger movie on a plot standpoint, on a character standpoint, and even on a visual standpoint. Because as much as I love Gore Verbinski's direction, I think the environments of Rango look great, and the character animation's certainly unique, and I do like it, but I don't think with the way visual technology is continuing to progress, it's gonna look good in 10 or 15 years.
I disagree with that too.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
First of all, you said on a villain base. I think that Rattlesnake Jake and Turtle Guy, I forget the guy's name, Rattlesnake Jake as a whole is a better villain than any villain you get in Klaus.
Well, the whole point of Klaus is there isn't a villain. There's just dumb idiots.
But Rattlesnake Jake provides a genuine fear to all of the characters, and he also provides a genuine threat to Rango. Even in the final fight, the only reason he wins is because there's this plot that he's created with this big bird and all of this other stuff that just goes awry, and it's a great action sequence.
I think between Loving Vincent and Klaus, Loving Vincent is the W here. It has to be.
It doesn't... Klaus, I don't think... If we put Klaus against Rango, it doesn't hold a chance. I think Loving Vincent also... I think Loving Vincent holds a very strong chance against Rango. I don't think that Klaus does. I think that Klaus is ultimately a different movie. Like, obviously, they're all different movies, but, like, you know, you're comparing them in those sorts of ways, which they are.
Yeah, and I think Loving Vincent is the one that needs to go on between Klaus and Loving Vincent, just simply because I think that there's other takes on the Santa Claus origin that are interesting, but I don't think there's ever going to be a Vincent Van Gogh biography picture or a celebration of his work through film that is going to hold a candle to what Loving Vincent is. I think we said it on the initial argument. Loving Vincent took the collective of like hundreds of artists to make thousands of paintings to make this movie.
65,000 oil paintings. 65,000.
It takes that 2D animation, hand-drawn art style that people love and have this nostalgia for to a whole new level.
Well, let's do it then.
All right, let's do it. Rango versus Vincent. Here we go.
I mean, I'm sorry, but it's Loving Vincent. Like, I don't see a way where Rango topples everything we've said about Loving Vincent over the past hour.
So, what I can give Rango here over Loving Vincent is, I don't think, when I say this take, I don't think animation is exclusively for family movies only, but I think it's a very big thing in the genre, And I think that's what Rango has on top of Loving Vincent. I think there's a lot of people who just haven't seen Rango. I was one of them a year ago when we did the Nickelodeon ranking. And I feel like Rango's, I think, definitely the more inviting film to literally anybody. I could show a friend I could show a friend of mine that, or I could show my father, or I could show like anybody. It's very accessible. Loving Vincent, I think story-wise, it's very inviting to anybody around my age, but as great as the animation looks, it might come off distracting to some people I could see who are like, I don't know, who don't watch like a lot of animation movies or like don't just want to get into that psychedelic type stuff. So when it comes to accessibility, I think Rango has it. I think Loving Vincent, obviously, animation-wise, visual-wise, has it. Story-wise, I don't know if it has it. Like, it's pretty good, but I think the story in Rango also, it's just kind of this cheesy Western, but it just works. It's just super entertaining. It knows exactly what it is, and
it's the three amigos, but without two other amigos.
Yeah, and it's definitely a better protagonist. The protagonist in Loving Vincent, I already forget his name. He's the postman's son. It's about Vincent, but Vincent is dead in the movie. Like, that's not a spoiler. That's just history. It's like it takes place right after his death. But Rango, like it's Rango. You're following Rango throughout the story, and he starts off as this like pet turned into a hero. It is literally a hero's journey Western, much like Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean. Gore could do his hero's journeys pretty well, if you ask me.
Because I love Rango. I have fought for it since it was on the other side of the bracket. I believe that Rango is one of the greatest animated movies ever made, and I'm not even joking. Even outside of this bracket, I believe that Rango is one of the greatest animated movies ever made. That being said, Rango is flushed away. It's the same movie. It is flushed away, and I'm not saying Flushed Away is a bad movie. I like Flushed Away. But what Flushed Away and Rango aren't is Loving Vincent.
Yeah. Alden, where do you stand on this debacle?
I feel like I'm going to just come off as a Rango hater, but I am siding with Loving Vincent here, and I think my bias is mainly because Van Gogh is probably my favorite, like, non-modern artist.
Yeah, if Salvador Dali still counts as modern.
I mean, I would argue Van Gogh is the start of modern art.
Yeah.
Definitely the Impressionist movement that led to the modern art movement, definitely, yes.
Yes, and I think that's why I like him so much, is what his art represents as like just paintings in general. I don't know. I have a bias there. I think the oil painting animation is incredible. It's like Rango is great 3D animation. Set design's really good. I don't think it's as unique as it should be. Whereas Loving Vincent, there's nothing that even comes close.
I feel like Rango was kind of misadvertised too, because I missed this one as a kid entirely. It looked like it was going to be like a dumb little cheesy, like every other DreamWorks movie that came out kind of adventure.
I definitely watched it like 2 years after it came out.
I mean, these are both movies that fell under the radar. Neither of these movies won.
Rango won.
Oh, did it? Mm-hmm. Based.
What Rango reminds me of is like movies like, and I know that it's not that, but like I agree, like in the advertising, it had the same energy as like Over the Head. Like that same energy where it's like you see it and you're like, okay, well, that's going to be like that movie. But it's not. It's not like that at all. But you're right. In the advertising, like it comes across like an Over the Hedge, or what's like Over the Hedge? There's another movie that's just like that.
Open Season?
Or even like Madagascar. Like it has that feel where it's like, oh, fish out of water, animal, that's not where it's supposed to be.
But you compared the quality of the animation in Rango compared to those movies. It's not even close.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's so much better.
I think that Loving Vincent is a testament to any animation at all. I think that any person who values any kind of animation can look at Loving Vincent and be like, yes, this is something that has never been replicated since and has never been done before and deserves the recognition that it hasn't gotten, to be completely honest. Like, it really, I believe everybody should watch Loving Vincent. Like, it's an incredible film. Even if you don't like appreciate like the story that happens in it, the work that went into it is in and of itself just breathtaking, just to be honest. Like, it's nothing like anything has ever been put to film before.
And it's not just some like boring like art history lesson either. Van Gogh's like life and death are very interesting.
It's tough because both of these films did something unique outside of the normal way to animate a movie. Like you just said with Loving Vincent, and then Rango kind of went towards the motion cap type stuff. Andy Serkis who?
There hasn't been a movie like Rango since Rango.
No. Nobody would put the time into it except for, I'd argue, the person that's closest doing it and did it before Rango was James Cameron with Avatar. And I think Avatar was an influence on Rango. I'm going to be the one to bring up Avatar on this episode.
And Loving Vincent is the testament to the fact that animated movies don't need to be made for kids. And if a movie like Loving Vincent got the appreciation that it deserved, other movies that have the audacity to tell the stories that Rango tries to tell could be more bombastic and could tell deeper stories, could be more out there with the decisions that they want to make. And for that, I have to give the point to Loving Vincent because it held its own against Anomalisa. It's fought way harder to get where it's at, whereas like Rango kind of got there by circumstance. And maybe that says a lot about the character and the movie itself. But for me, this is Loving Vincent, and I really won't be persuaded at this point.
I couldn't agree more. This is not really so much of a fight as so much as like I want to defend Rango, even though I know that Loving Vincent is an objectively better film, and it has so many more like culturally relevant like properties to it.
We're there. Loving Vincent has found a way, and hopefully, unlike Vincent van Gogh, this movie gets its appreciation before it disappears from streaming catalogs because physical media is dead. Yeah. Thank you everyone for checking out today's episode of Duel of the Takes. Thank you panelists for being here, fighting tooth and nail.
I have one more point to make. How far would have Hoodwinked gone if it got a nom in this bracket?
Not even one.
I would have fought so hard.
I would have shit on Hoodwinked so bad.
Hoodwinked could have beat Ferdinand or Boss Baby.
Hoodwinked might have been like a 2000s movie.
It was like 2006, I think.
Hoodwinked wouldn't have beat Shrek.
It would have been with like Cars.
It would have been Shrek, not Shrek 2.
No.
Yeah, it would have been Shark
I would
Tale.
have brought it all the way up.
Yeah, next week we join us as we will be making a tier list out of Nintendo Wii video games to kick off our Christmas specials. So it's going to be a fight.
The Wii.